Chapter 440. The girl in red looked at Zhuo curiously. This is Zhuo, the champion of the Longhu list? Gao Qingxiang smiled awkwardly and said, This is my sister, Gao Qiao. Yes, this is Zhuo, class monitor Zhuo. This is Li Qinglong, vice class monitor Li Qiao. You can't be rude. Gao Qiao looked at Zhuo's face and smiled. How can I be rude? Those two bully me every day at home. Huh. Hello, brother Zhuo. Although we're in the same grade, this is the first time I've seen you in person. I'm from class 9, grade 1. Zhuo said enthusiastically. So you're classmates. That's nice. Gao Qiao stretched out her slender hand. Zhuo shook it and said, Then you can go ahead and have fun. Li Qinglong and I are almost done. We're going back. What's the hurry? Gao Qingxiang pulled Zhuo and said, You said it yourself that we have some free time today. It's still early, so we'll just be sitting around if we go back. Junior brother Zhuo, do us a favor and chat with us. Sigh. Shopping. Gao Qingyan also had an eager look on his face. Zhuo looked embarrassed. This, Li Qinglong said, Zhuo, it's rare for Senior Gao to be so enthusiastic. We haven't had a good time in Fenghai City. We said we were going to walk around today, but we haven't been to many places. It's rare to have two local bullies. Zhuo was a little tempted. This, Gao Qingyan said, Let's find a place to drink later. Haha, there's a show to watch. Zhuo was interested. What show? The Wu family is going too. Gao Qingyan chuckled coldly. Junior brother Zhuo, don't think that we're enemies. Everyone in the country knows about the real enemies. Do you think it's so easy to get over the trouble caused by the Wu family? Zhuo, don't worry, we don't have any problems now. Gao Qingyan put his arm around Zhuo's shoulder and sneered in a low voice. We have no way to resist the pressure from the family. Besides, we have never thought of going against you. In this world, who would be willing to go against a genius who has the potential to soar to the sky? He is either a madman or a fool. You are the kind of genius that can soar to the heavens. Either we kill him with a single blow, or our clan will be destroyed in the future. Gao Qingyan said sincerely, so we chose not to be your enemy. After all, you were forced to do that. If you had a choice, you wouldn't have taken the initiative to be our enemy. The Wu clan must have the same idea as us. However, our two families still need to discuss the principles of the past. Someone from his family died, and so did someone from my family. Since I can't find trouble with you, I have to find trouble with another target. I have to vent my anger, don't I? It had to be said that Gao Qingyan's words were quite sincere and reasonable. That was the reason. No one could swallow this anger. After all, they needed a place to vent their anger. However, if they couldn't find trouble with Zhuo, how could they vent their anger? Besides Zhuo, who else was qualified to be their target? Zhuo smiled bitterly and said with the same sincerity, Senior Gao, to be honest, I didn't want to come to Hidden Dragon Academy. If it wasn't for that incident, I would have been very happy to come. However, that incident happened. I really didn't want to come. Why? The hatred between our two families. How can a mere junior like me withstand it? However, who would have thought that it would suddenly become like this because of the hatred between the elders? That Wu Yintian didn't want to let it go, as if he had been wronged. I still don't understand. Didn't they benefit from the incident that year? It was our Phoenix City's second high who suffered. Okay, they didn't suffer at all. How could it be like this? Shouldn't there be a reason for this? Zhuo said with confusion. Why is right and wrong reversed like this? Gao Qingyan, Gao Qingxiang, and Gao Qiao were all startled and looked confused. What do you mean by reversed? What hatred between us? Zhuo was speechless as he looked at the three siblings. He gritted his teeth and said, You guys don't know where the root of this is? Gao Qingxiang said, What is it? Can you just say it? Zhuo was completely convinced. Oh my God, I really admire you. You don't know anything, then what are you doing? Zhuo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. After all this time, you still don't know anything. You didn't even do the most basic thing. Gao Qingxiang and Gao Qingyan looked at each other. Junior brother Zhuo, Please explain. Please. Li Qinglong said. How can we not know about this matter? Who doesn't know about the hatred between us back then? However, he was interrupted by Zhuo Xiaoduo. It would be unfair for us to talk about the past, and who was right and who was wrong. Even if we said it, not only would you not believe us, you would even think that we were stirring up trouble. Today, we did say a few more words, but that was not our intention. I really didn't expect that your so-called grudges were just to find trouble with each other for fun. Of course, I won't shirk the responsibility. I killed them, and I can't deny it even if I want to. However, most of the older generation knows about the hatred between us back then and the root of what happened back then. For example, how the life and death arena was decided back then. The confrontation on the stage was just a minor detail. The several encounters at the hotel entrance and the verbal conflict were all monitored and recorded. Zhuo Xiaoduo was speechless and smiled bitterly. I thought you knew everything and understood everything. Now it seems that I thought too much. Huh? Gao Qingxiang took a step forward. Junior brothers will please explain. Zhuo Xiaoduo stopped and said helplessly, Senior Gao, I don't believe that you still don't understand. The current situation is that I can't say anything. If I say it, everyone will think that I'm trying to drive a wedge between you. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is something that everyone already knows. Why must I, the one who shouldn't say it? You can ask a few of your own people and you'll get the answer. It's much more credible than what I say, right? Besides, I'm afraid that I can't avoid the matter between your two big families. I really don't want to get involved. I don't dare to. Senior Gao, please let me pass. Zhuo Xiaoduo smiled bitterly and saluted with his hands folded. Both of you are straightforward men. I sincerely hope to be friends with both of you. These are my heartfelt words. But don't look for the so-called truth from me. I'm just a tool being used by others. Zhuo Xiaoduo smiled bitterly and pulled Li Qinglong with him. They turned around and disappeared into the crowd in an instant. The three Gao siblings looked in the direction that Zhuo Xiaoduo left, deep in thought. Hatred between us back then? Why is there still hatred between us back then? How is it confusing right and wrong? Gao Qingxiang scratched his head. Zhuo Xiaoduo's words made me blush. So we don't know anything, and the two families are just playing with each other. Is it a self-directed entertainment show? Then let's go back and ask. Gao Qingyun said, since Zhuo Xiaoduo said so, there must be someone who knows. But isn't it too late tonight? They've already made an appointment. If we don't go, I'm afraid our family will be at a disadvantage. Gao Qiao frowned and said, we still have to go? Gao Qingxiang said, and tonight, it's said that Wu Qing, Wu Yi, and the other outstanding members of the Wu family will also be there. We might as well ask them. I think it's not just us who don't know about Zhuo Xiaoduo's so-called hatred between us back then. Wu Qing and the others probably don't know either. Let's go. I wanted to drag Zhuo Xiaoduo with me, but that guy looked like he had something to hide. Sai, it's no wonder. He offended two big families before coming to Fenghai City. If it were me, it's normal that I wouldn't dare to come. Let's go. That night, 11 o'clock, in the biggest Sky Fortune Hall of the Eight Dragons nightclub, the most famous money-squandering establishment in Fenghai City. More than 10 young disciples of the Wu family and more than 10 young disciples of the Gao family were confronting each other. They were ready to fight at any moment. Gao Qingxiang stepped forward and said, I really don't think it's interesting to fight every day. It's just us, and no one dares to kill each other. It's just a fight like a bullfight. What's the point of going back to the nutrition cabin? No, not even the slightest bit. But since everyone is here today, don't mind me asking a question that has been bothering me for a long time. Why did Wu Yintian propose the life and death battle? This matter has actually been mentioned several times, but every time I asked about it, it would end up in a fight. But today I want to understand it. If I don't understand it, at least I won't participate in the battle. Gao Qingxiang said, Wu Yintian is the top genius of Fenghai 13, there's no doubt about it. But why did he suddenly propose the life and death battle? Doesn't he know the danger of the life and death battle? Is it Zhuo Xiaoduo or someone else who provoked him? Who made him make such an unwise decision? As soon as this sentence was asked, the faces of the young leaders of the Wu and Gao families instantly darkened. He's already dead. What's the point of saying this now? Can't we get to the bottom of the matter when he's dead? There's always a reason for everything. Water has a source and a tree has a root. It's impossible for two strangers to meet without saying a word and directly engage in the life and death battle, right? Gao Qingxiang sneered. On the opposite side, a young man in his 30s from the Wu family said mockingly, "You don't know about this? Then do you know why our two families fight every day?" Gao Qingxiang said, "Our two families have a tacit understanding that we can't target Zhuo, the murderer, so we can only vent our anger on each other. It's nothing more than that." The young man on the opposite side laughed. "That's right. We're venting our anger on each other. Since you understand, why are you asking? Are you scared? Or are you scared?" Gao Qingxiang narrowed his eyes. "I still want to understand the reason behind it. Only then can we have a clear goal. Even if we continue to fight, we can understand it." Chapter 441. A 30-something-year-old youth from the Gao family said in a low voice, "Qingxiang, don't say any more." Gao Qingxiang was stunned. He looked at the 7 or 8 Gao family youths who were as confused as him. He turned his head and said, "Big brother, you also know the cause of this matter?" On the opposite side, the Wu family youths were also confused. On both sides, the young leaders looked at their respective brothers who were at a loss. They looked at each other and said, "Explain clearly?" "That's fine too." The Wu family youth took out his phone and said indifferently, "I have all the recordings here. I'll show you later. Let's talk about the cause first." "The cause was more than 20 years ago." The Wu family youth said indifferently, "That's not right." Because of this, during the Dragon and Tiger ranking competition, the Phoenix City teacher was called Hu Riyun, and the Fenghai 13 high school teacher was called Li Qingxiu. And the so-called grudge between the two schools started from these two people. More than 20 years ago, Hu Riyun's Dantian was destroyed by Li Qingxiu. That's all. Then, whenever the two schools get together, they will fight to the death. The root cause is also because of this. But this time, the people leading the teams were all involved, and they just had to meet in the hotel. So, the conflict started from here. As he said that, he took out a cable and connected his phone to the big screen. A slightly blurry image appeared on the big screen. In the image, Li Qingxiu was leading Wu Yuntian and the others forward. Then, the elevator suddenly opened. A group of people walked out. The one in the lead was a beautiful woman, and behind her was Zhuo. Everyone recognized him. Then, Li Qingxiu quickly walked over and said with a playful smile, "Yo, isn't this Phoenix City's second high school teacher who?" "Patter." The image paused. The Wu family youth said indifferently, "Let me introduce you. This female teacher is Fenghai 13 high school teacher. She is from the Li family and is called Li Qingxiu. More than 20 years ago, he was the one who personally crippled the female teacher who led the team on the opposite side. So, the grudge between the two sides has continued to this day." Most of the 30-something youths from the two families heard about this for the first time. They all stared at the screen. Then, the scene started again. All the way until Wu Yuntian suddenly rushed out and asked about the dead principal of the opposing team, which infuriated the other team members. The video ended. It stopped at Mo Yan's angry face. The leading youth from the Wu clan said indifferently, "This is the first round." Everyone from the Gao family looked at Wu Yuntian with disdain. Wu Yuntian rushing out to humiliate them. Wasn't he just looking for trouble? Knowing the outcome, they only had one thought in their minds. They were courting death. Next is the second scene. The leading young man from the Wu family operated it again. Then, another video appeared on the big screen. At the entrance of the hotel, the two teams bumped into each other again. They were both walking out, and then they stopped to talk. After the teacher finished speaking, Gao Yin'er, who was standing behind Li Qingxiu, took a step forward and asked the insulting words to Hu Ruoyun. Then, the teacher and the students continued to mock and ridicule him. Gao Yin'er and her sister took turns to insult him, and Wu Yuntian continued to insult the dead principal of the opposing team. Finally, Zhuo started to fight back. The insults from both sides escalated. Finally, Wu Yuntian's words were heard. "Zhuo, do you dare to fight to the death?" Gao Yin'er's words. "Zhuo, you're dead." The two sides separated. The video stopped at Wu Yuntian's words. See you in the arena. They looked at each other with murderous intent. The video ended there. The youths from the two families were speechless. In the first video, Wu Yintian provoked him. In the second video, Gao Yin'er cursed. Both of them were role models, causing the situation to escalate and worsen. After that, it's on the arena. You've all seen the live broadcast. The Wu clan youth said indifferently. That's what happened. One of the Gao family's youths stepped forward and said, "Rewind the video." Then he pointed at Li Chengqiu's arrogant and mocking face and said through gritted teeth, "That bastard, where is he now? That guy is from the Li clan. Although he's not much, he's still a direct descendant of the Li clan. Also, after the Longhu list, he was killed halfway. Now his meridians are shattered, his bones are broken, and his dantian is destroyed. Not only can he not recover his cultivation, but he's also only conscious. He's destined to be paralyzed for the rest of his life. Are you sure you want to find trouble with him?" The young man leading the Wu clan laughed coldly. "If we could find trouble with him, why would our two clans waste time here?" All the youths from the two families who didn't know what was going on suddenly felt that this matter had become boring. What was this? You insulted him like this, then forced him to fight to the death. And in the end, you gave your life to him that your entire family is still here fighting to the death for you. This is really... Why bother? I really have to hand it to you. Wu Qing stepped forward. His face was twisted, and his usually handsome face was full of sadness. He said, "No wonder our families don't want us to find trouble with Zhuo. From the beginning to the end, what does this have to do with Zhuo? Do you want him to swallow his anger and not stand up for his school's reputation? Do you want him to just wait for death? He's so eager to die, putting a noose around his neck step by step. I'm speechless." Wu Qing waved his hand and left with his younger twin brother, Wu Yi. "From now on, this matter has nothing to do with us brothers. We won't participate in the battle with the Gao family again." Wu Qing left with his younger brother. Gao Qingxiang's face was also twisted, and he didn't know what to say. After a long time, he sighed. "No wonder when I met Zhuo and invited him to come, he refused. When I asked him the reason, he only told me to come back and find the answer. Sigh. So our families don't dare to find trouble with the Li family, and only dare to fight among ourselves. At most, we'll take our anger out on Zhuo. This matter is really well handled. In any case, we can't afford to lose face like this." With a wave of his hand, the three siblings left as well. Soon after, a few young people from each family turned around and left. Wu Yinhai stood there and hesitated for a moment. Finally, he sighed and said, "I'm just a side branch of our family. I've always been insignificant. I can't interfere with the big picture. I'm leaving too." Wu Yinhai left as well. In the end, the Gao family and Wu family were left with 3 or 4 leaders each. They looked at each other and saw the meaning in each other's eyes. The leader of the Gao family said calmly, "Boss Wu, you're really well prepared." The leader of the Wu family said calmly, "Boss Gao, don't tell me you didn't prepare these videos today? Today's the first time the young people from both families have gathered together." Both of them smiled sinisterly. Then they turned around and shouted, "Wine." Boss Gao said, "You still want to compete after drinking? Same to you." They walked all the way back. "So, are you trying to drag the Li family into this?" Li Qinglong asked. Don't worry, it's not your Li family," Zhuo said casually. Li Qinglong said impatiently, "Of course I know it's not my Li family. But why did you suddenly come up with this idea? What's the point of all these twists and turns?" Zhuo said calmly, "Didn't we discuss it a few days ago? The Wu family and the Gao family are treating me like this not only because of external pressure, but also because of their own reasons. We still don't know what the root cause is. Through today's meeting, we've seen them. We should be able to sense that the younger generation of these two families is hostile to us, but it's not strong. So what the real reason is, it's up for debate. Maybe I'm just a raft," Zhuo said calmly. There's no so. I just feel that it was a matter of 3 families. Why are there only 2 of them fighting each other? Is the Li family of Fenghai City a big family that we can't afford to offend? Zhuo Xiaoduo said. That's why I went through so much trouble to let them go back and find out for themselves. Li Qinglong nodded silently. But as far as we know, that Li Qingqiu isn't from a big family. He seems to only have 2 brothers. But that's even more strange. Zhuo Xiaoduo sneered. Li Qingqiu is the real cause of all these changes. He's the chief culprit. Why should he be able to live a peaceful life? Just because he's crippled and has lost all his cultivation? Whether they're looking for trouble or making friends with us. There are only 2 families. The matter isn't perfect. There's always something missing. Li Qinglong smacked his lips. You bad. Don't mention it. Through today's meeting, I'm sure that the young people of the Gao family don't know the real reason and the ins and outs of this matter. At least, they don't know the whole truth. This also makes me even more certain that the higher-ups of the Gao family and the Wu family are still harboring ill intentions towards me. Zhuo Xiao's face showed a strange smile. Do you know why the higher-ups of these 2 families never let the young people know the real cause of this matter? Li Qinglong frowned as he thought. Because these 2 families want to take back the hearts of the young people after this matter? Li Qinglong asked. I don't know. I'm not sure. Zhuo Xiaoduo said faintly. But the more they don't want the young people to know, the more I have to let them know. Among the young people in these big families, how many of them are completely unambitious? The more outstanding the young people are, the more arrogant they are, and the more they think that they have the right to speak. He rolled his eyes. Swollen this matter, there will be a lot of things that can be exploited. Li Qinglong pursed his lips and said, I think you're thinking too much. You want to drive a wedge between the 2 families? Isn't that a bit whimsical? Chapter 442. Zhuo Xiaoduo said indifferently. We're still at the stage where we have to take one step at a time. I don't intend to drive a wedge between them. Let's see how their mentality changes after this matter is exposed. Let's play slowly. It won't do any harm to us. Zhuo Xiaoduo stopped talking about this topic. However, in Li Qinglong's opinion, he couldn't just stop there. He had to push the matter further and make a plan. He had to let the subsequent matters develop according to his own wishes. It would be best if everything went according to his and Zhuo Xiao's plan. That would be even better, however, it wasn't easy to achieve this. Don't think about it. Let's put the Li family on the table first. Don't think that everything will be fine. So what if Li Qingqiu is disabled? Zhuo Xiaoduo sneered. I'm not the one who crippled him. He hasn't paid back the debt he owes teacher Hu. He's been in the limelight for more than 20 years, and he's been arrogant for more than 20 years. He still has to take revenge for insulting old principal He. The price he needs to pay for this is far from enough. Do you think you can stay out of this and pretend that nothing happened? Dream on? I agree with you. However, there must be a reason why the Wu family and the Gao family didn't make trouble for the Li family. I don't care what the reason is. Zhuo Xiaoduo said rudely, a life for a life. A debt must be paid with money. I can owe people, but I won't allow others to owe me. Li Qinglong was speechless. This guy's brain circuit is still as strange as ever. You're talking as if you're not the murderer. That night, Li Qinglong completed the first compression of the thorny road. Although he tried his best to reduce the swelling, his dantian was still much smaller than Zhuo Xiao's. This time, he could only compress half of his dantian before he couldn't compress it anymore. However, Li Qinglong did not force it, because he felt that if he continued to press down, the feeling of his dantian and meridians exploding and boiling would be too intense. Compared to forcing it, the possibility of his jinqi going astray due to the sharp increase in pain was very high. It was still acceptable for him to stop for the time being. At this point, it was the limit of the swelling. After completing this round of suppression, the 2 of them practiced back-to-back in the training room as usual. Li Qinglong suddenly realized that the popularity of Zhuo Xiao's Flaming Sun Sutra had increased by a lot. It had increased by more than double. This huge change made Li Qinglong, who was practicing close to Zhuo Xiaoduo, feel as if he was in a furnace. Li Qinglong was sweating profusely and almost suspected that Zhuo Xiaoduo had cooked him alive. However, Swollen still clenched his teeth and held on. This was because he could clearly feel that the cold energy hidden in his meridians was completely steamed out by this sharp increase in heat. Instead, it was swimming in his meridians. This was an innate cold energy. For a long time, it had been entrenched in Li Qinglong's meridians and had become one with his meridians. There was no way to get rid of it. However, under the nourishment of the Flaming Sun Sutra for a long time, it suddenly reached its limit today. After 3 hours of being steamed in the furnace, it was completely steamed out by Zhuo Xiaoduo's Flaming Sun Sutra. Finally, Li Qinglong let out a muffled groan. A blue cold energy suddenly rushed out of his mouth like a long dragon. In an instant, it sprayed onto the basin opposite him. Half of the water in the basin instantly froze. Not only that, even the clothes on the clothes rack and the towel on top of the basin all froze. This cold energy was no small matter. Even with the continuous eruption of Zhuo Xiaoduo's Flaming Sun Sutra, it still persisted for more than a minute before it completely melted. After the cold energy was completely melted, it was transformed into extremely pure spiritual qi. As the two of them cultivated, it was absorbed back into their bodies and transformed into extremely pure spiritual qi. Zhuo Xiaoduo only felt that the spiritual energy between heaven and earth seemed to have become much denser. With a single breath, the spiritual energy in his dantian was suddenly filled to the brim. In an instant, it reached the point where it needed to be suppressed again. The moment Li Qinglong spat out that cold energy, all his meridians were opened, and his condition changed greatly. The spiritual energy in the surroundings gushed endlessly like a tidal wave, madly pouring into Li Qinglong's dantian. The high-tier star soul jade in his hand had been used for cultivation. Previously, he had only been able to absorb 2 of them in an hour. But now, there was at least a third of the energy left in the jade, and it had been completely absorbed by him in just 5 minutes, turning into dust. After that, the cold energy was completely melted and refined. At the right time, more than a third of the energy rushed back into Li Qinglong's dantian, like a tidal wave. Li Qinglong only felt that his dantian had suddenly become a round and bulging balloon, bursting to the limit. In an instant, it had reached the point where it needed to be suppressed again. Li Qinglong didn't feel good about such a sudden turn of events. Well, to be more precise, he was stunned. What's going on? Didn't I just complete a round of spiritual energy suppression? Why? Is it suddenly full again? But at this moment, there was no time to think about anything else. He had to face this sudden burst of spiritual energy suppression. Zhuo Xiaoduo did not have time to think about anything because the energy in his dantian was about to rush out and forcefully break through. He made a prompt decision and immediately circulated his energy to suppress it, and took the opportunity to suppress it for the 10th time. Li Qinglong was in the same situation. He circulated his energy and began his second round of suppression. The next moment, ow, 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 ow. Ah! Zhuo Xiaoduo straightened his neck and howled. Ow, 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 ow. Ah! Li Qinglong straightened his neck and howled. Their voices rose and fell like a tenor duet. One was louder than the other, and one was more tragic than the other. He really could not hold it in and had to scream. It was too painful. In the neighboring villa, the pitiful headmaster Yi Changqing had just fallen asleep. He had been working non-stop for the entire day, causing him to be quite tired. It was as if he had been trampled by an elephant. But just as he fell asleep, he was immediately awakened by this tragic cry. It would be fine if there was only one. But now there were 2 people screaming at the same time. Could it be that there was an accident? Yi Changqing was shocked. He did not even bother to change his clothes and rushed out in his pajamas. In a flash, he arrived at the window of Zhuo Xiaoduo's villa. He opened the window and peered in. In the middle of the training room, the 2 guys were sitting back to back with their legs crossed. Their veins were bulging, their faces were ferocious, and their bodies were drenched in sweat. Yi Changqing's head was full of black lines. It was too late for regrets. Damn, this was too tragic. Even if the path of thorns was not easy to walk and the process must be very painful, There was no need for the two of them to scream so exaggeratedly, right? This was simply a demonic sound that filled the brain. Ow, ow, ow. The two of them howled together again. Their voices rose and fell in an endless stream, accompanied by their ferocious faces and bulging veins. Percent yin, hashtag percent at percent. Yi Changqing sighed deeply. Forget it, I'm not going to sleep. I'll just stand here for a while and act as a guard. They were screaming so miserably. Those who knew would think that they were training. Those who did not know would think that the two of them had some strange interests and were communicating that the two of them screamed for a full 2 hours. Li Qinglong felt that he was hovering between life and death several times. It was not because of anything else, but because this time, when he was compressing, he realized that he could compress more, especially when he borrowed the heat of Zhuo Xiaoduo's Flaming Sun scripture and used his own strength to suppress his own Dantian strength. With such help, how could Swollen Man let go of such a great opportunity? Although the pain increased sharply, Swollen Man knew that this was a rare opportunity. It was related to how far he could go in his cultivation journey. He suppressed it without hesitation. Like a hot knife through butter, he compressed it to 1/4 of his Dantian. Yes, the amount of energy in his Dantian was only 1/4 of his Dantian. At this point, he could no longer compress it. After the second round of compression, it was more than twice as much as the first round. Li Qinglong was very satisfied with this result and was overjoyed. After a while, the two of them opened their eyes at almost the same time and groaned at the same time. Damn, it hurts so much. Then they said at the same time, damn, why is it so smelly? It must be you. Hurry up and get lost. Then they kicked at the same time. With a boom, the two of them were hit at the same time and were sent flying. Then, in midair, the two of them twisted their waists and jumped into their own bathrooms to take a shower. Then the two of them did the same thing again. While taking a shower, they took out a bottle from their spatial rings and gulped down the spiritual liquid. Yi Changqing, who was outside the window, opened his eyes wide. This spiritual liquid seemed a little familiar. This is. At the moment of realization, Yi Changqing flew into a rage. This was clearly the nutrient liquid in the nourishment cabin. These two little bastards. Not only did you drink such a dirty thing, you even poured it out from inside. Don't you find it dirty to drink bottles after bottles of it like water? Don't you find it disgusting? No. This spiritual liquid. Why is it so clear? It seems to be new. Could it be that when they were the first batch to enter the nourishment cabin, at that time? How dare you? This was a blatant act of theft. Unforgivable. No wonder the freshman's nutrient liquid was consumed so quickly this year. In the past, the nutrient liquid could last for half a year after being filled to the brim once. But now, a few of them had already been replenished 3 or 4 times. It turned out that they had all been drunk by these two things, that Yi Changqing was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. These two bastards really didn't hold back. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation votes. 5 updates. Chapter 443. Zhuo Xiaoduo drank a bottle of spirit liquid and turned to the bathroom to apply body wash on his naked body. He raised his legs, raised his hands, and posed in all kinds of positions. It had to be said that a martial artist's flexibility was good. He only needed to use his right hand to rub his entire body. As he cleaned himself, he sang a song, Invincible. How lonely. Invincible. How empty. As he sang, he suddenly stopped between his legs. Then he smiled wretchedly. Second brother, this song of mine is about you. Look at how valiant and majestic you are. You are also a person who is above the clouds in second brother's mind. You are above the clouds, looking down from above. How much scenery can you see? With a whoosh, Yi Changqing, who could no longer listen to him, went home in a flash. He was angry and amused at the same time. This was a proper shameless person. Despicable. That night, Zhuo Xiaoduo and Li Qinglong slept very soundly. It was probably because they were too tired from shouting. In the morning, the two of them went to school energetically. That night, Xiang Kuangren, Wen Xingtian, and the others did not sleep at all. In the computer room of the Hidden Dragon High School, they asked professionals to keep an eye on the country's banking system. Until 9 o'clock in the morning. There's a situation. A teacher's fingers formed a phantom and moved quickly on the computer keyboard, beginning to lock on to the other party. Just now, a large amount of money was suddenly transferred to this account. It's a total of 300 million. The source of the transfer is Shangjing. Xiang Quangren, Wen Xingtian, Yi Chongqing, Grandma Shi, Vice Principal Cheng's wife, and a gloomy person who had never appeared in the school. It was Vice Principal Cheng. Vice Principal Liu sat in his wheelchair and watched all of this quietly, as well as the backbone of their families. They stood up at the same time. Even Vice Principal Liu, who was sitting in his wheelchair, could not help but straighten his body by grabbing the armrest. Everyone's eyes were filled with monstrous anger. Shangjing, Shangjing, Shangjing. The black hand was actually in Shangjing. Another one. This one's direction is even more obvious. It's from Fenghai 1 Dao League. This one's 500 million. Ask the Dao League. 9:20. Another 200 million was transferred to this card from another account in Shangjing. Yi Chongqing's voice was urgent. Let's not investigate the Dao League for now. Investigate the two accounts in Shangjing immediately. I want to know all of his information, name, affiliation, phone number, everything. The previous account belonged to a foreign trade company called Guangjin in Shangjing. The other account belonged to a foreign trade company called Fenghe. The company's registered addresses are all in Dongqing District. Yi Chongqing grabbed his phone and dialed a number. The call was instantly connected. Chief of the South. How is it? Yes, two foreign trade companies. They are respectively. All right, do what you need to do. If anyone in Fenghai City tries to stop you, just say that it's my order and you're carrying out my mission. As long as there's anyone who disagrees, there's no need for him to look for me. I'll naturally look for him. Understood. Thank you for your support, Chief Nan. There's no time to lose. Minister Nan's voice was full of majesty. I've codenamed this operation Clear Sky. Act immediately. I'll immediately call the Star Shield General Administration in the Central Plains and fully cooperate with you. Yes, Chief Nan, but there's one thing I have to report to you. The target we've confirmed is the Dao League. It's said that it's a gang run by the prince's brother-in-law in the Central Plains. The indifferent voice on the other side said, if it's confirmed that the Prince of the Central Plains is involved in this matter, I assure you that from now on, Yinwu will no longer have a Prince of the Central Plains. Thank you, Minister Nan. The call was hung up. Yi Chongqing's gaze was like lightning. Under the command of the Hidden Dragon High School, all nascent soul cultivators above the Hidden Dragon High School are to gather within 1 minute. Wen Xingtian, yes. Distribute the Dao-Seeking Alliance's roster. Have you marked everyone's home addresses? Everything is ready. 1,753 people, including their families. Not a single one of them can be missing, and not a single one of them can die. Don't let them down. Yes, if anyone goes easy on them in this event, their entire family will be exterminated. Xiang Quangren said coldly. Yes, from now on, the computer room will monitor all teachers' phones and all means of contacting the outside world. Yes, move out. They've only started transferring money after such a long time. It's obvious that they've discovered that there's no hope of silencing them. They can only fulfill their promise and spend money. Yi Chongqing's face was as heavy as water. The impassioned assembly whistle suddenly sounded in the sky above Hidden Dragon High School. Immediately, a thunderous voice sounded in the sky. All nascent soul cultivators above, gather in 1 minute. Merely 40 seconds later, no less than 1,000 people all soared into the sky. Mixed with an imposing aura that could suppress heaven and earth, they flew out in all directions. The most tyrannical force in the middle crushed toward the center of the city. A thunderous strike accomplished in one fell swoop. In the face of such a movement, the entire Fenghai city was completely silent. No force dared to act rashly. The surging murderous aura surged through the wind for tens of thousands of miles, copious and irresistible. The peak forces of the Hidden Dragon High School came out in full force. This force was absolutely crushing and irresistible within the boundaries of Fenghai City. The leader of the Fenghai Dao League was only at the Cloud Transformation Realm. If a comparison had to be made in this operation, it would be like lifting a mountain to smash a mosquito. In less than half an hour, all the members of the Fenghai Dao League who were completely unguarded were captured. No one was left out. At this time, not to mention the other party's backstage movements, even the combat power of the Star Shield General Administration arranged by the Southern Chief had not yet arrived. All the members of the Fenghai Dao League, from top to bottom, 1,753 people, plus their respective families, totaled more than 7,400 people. All of them were captured and brought back. There were even some families who had dogs. Even the dogs were captured. Of course, most of them still had to be released. What if their dogs starved to death? It had to be said that they were really thoughtful. When everyone was brought to the martial arts plaza of the Hidden Dragon High School, the people from the Star Shield General Administration finally arrived. After that, the wind and clouds surged in the sky again. A troop of soldiers came from afar. The leading general shouted, "May I ask why the Hidden Dragon High School suddenly took action? What's the reason?" "We're following orders. No forces have the right to interfere." Yi Changqing's voice and expression did not change. He spoke frankly and with assurance, full of a condescending attitude. At this time, a vigorous figure rushed over. It was a middle-aged man who looked to be in his 30s. He was spirited and handsome. Beside him, there was an old man in his 50s accompanying him. He was full of vigor, like a deep pool and a high mountain. This person was the housekeeper of the prince's mansion of the Central Plains. "Principal Yi," the middle-aged man in his 30s shouted anxiously. "Why is this? How did the Fenghai Dao League offend the Hidden Dragon High School? For the sake of this little brother, please." Yi Changqing said indifferently, "Brother Chiu, are you saying that you're willing to take responsibility for any mistakes made by the Dao League? You must know that the Hidden Dragon High School is following orders from the Southern Chief to eliminate the Dao League. If you want to bring people back, you can contact the Southern Chief directly. The Hidden Dragon High School does not have the right to do so." Brother Chiu's expression changed instantly. It was worse than eating feces. "Southern Chief? Which Southern Chief?" "In Yanwu, there's only one Southern Chief who can command the Hidden Dragon High School." Yi Changqing's voice was indifferent. Brother Chiu's expression changed instantly. He then cupped his hands and said, "Sorry to disturb you." Yi Changqing said indifferently, "I don't know what Brother Chiu said just now. It seems like the Fenghai Dao League's actions have Brother Chiu's face. I will inform the Southern Chief about this. Please don't blame me for saying this first." Brother Chiu's expression became more and more ugly. He looked at the old housekeeper beside him. The old housekeeper cupped his hands and said with a smile, "Principal Yi, this old man was ordered by the prince to take a look at the situation. I didn't know it involved so much. Please don't blame me. Also, the prince asked me to pass a message to Principal Yi. The prince's residence is good wine that is difficult to taste. If Principal Yi has the time, the prince will welcome you. Please tell the prince that after Yi Changqing is done with his work, if he has the time, he will naturally find the prince to drink wine." Yi Changqing smiled and cupped his hands. The two people in the air instantly retreated. As for Brother Chiu, when he left, his face had already turned deathly pale. On the side of the Hidden Dragon High School, several people looked at that person's back thoughtfully. Their eyes were deep. No one knew what they were thinking. The army that had spoken earlier also retreated. The 3 words Southern Chief were enough to intimidate the entire Fenghai City. On the other hand, the Star Shield Department was constantly contacted by phone. The entire Star Shield Department was mobilized and started the interrogation immediately. Starting from the lower level, one by one, family by family was taken away for interrogation. Some people who had done all kinds of evil were directly killed on the spot. With so many people interrogating and testifying against each other, it was a mess. Many people knew that they were not good people, but they also knew a lot of things about the people around them. They exposed each other, trying to make up for their crimes. They really did everything they could and sold everything they could. The words expose and reduce their crimes immediately caused the entire Dao League to be in chaos. Before the morning arrived, more than 3,000 people had already been released. These were all lower-level clan members. Although they were in the wrong, their crimes did not warrant death. They would only be given a small beating as a warning, and then they would be allowed to leave with their families. If it was not necessary, the Hidden Dragon High School would not kill more people. However, the Dao League's chief, 2 deputy chiefs, 4 elders, and 4 hall masters did not receive such treatment. They were not even interrogated. People just kept coming over with files in their hands. They read the things related to these people that had just been recorded and asked, "This matter, did it happen?" He nodded and made a tick. He shook his head and made a question mark. Under separate interrogation, more than 3 people said that the question mark was true. When they came over, they would be slapped and a tooth would be slapped. Then, they would make a tick again. More and more people were released. However, the crimes of those who stayed were also proven to be more and more serious. However, the upper echelons of the Dao-seeking alliance still did not know what they had done wrong to cause the situation to turn so bad. What was the reason? A few people lowered their heads, their faces pale. That matter should not be. Found out, right? They had succeeded, and the money had been transferred. Would there be any problems? Chapter 444. The only thing the sect members knew was that someone in the sect had offended the higher-ups and was investigated thoroughly by the other party. All of them felt that they were unlucky and their faces were ashen. After a while, people started to be dragged out continuously. They were pressed to the ground in front of the 11 higher-ups of the Dao League. Their hands were raised, and their heads fell to the ground. Blood flowed like a river. The 11 higher-ups of the Dao League were ashen. Killing was done. This matter proved that it was serious. The higher-ups of the Dao League realized that the people they interrogated were getting closer and closer to the core. The questions they asked also started to make people shudder in fear. These were things that the 10 or so higher-ups outside would not know. The questions that they prayed that they would not be asked were now being interrogated bit by bit, one by one, in each of the interrogation rooms. Those who were being interrogated now were the confidants of the higher-ups of the Dao League. Dozens of people were being interrogated at once. There was bound to be someone who could not take it. As long as one of them could not take it and spit out, there would be a second one. Then, as they exposed each other, the third one would be dragged in. Then, one by one, they would be put on the same rope. I confess, Hall Master Zhu should know about what happened to Vice Principal Cheng's family back then. One of the Hall Master's confidants suddenly said, "I only beg for you to spare my life. I'll tell you. I'm willing to tell you everything I know." This sentence came out of nowhere and was even more shocking. Even Zhang Xiaofei, who was in charge of the interrogation, was stunned. Then his eyes widened. Hall Master Huang. He was not the same person as the Hall Master who dealt with Xiang Chong and Xiang Bing in the trial this time. The one who set the target was surnamed Fu, Hall Master Fu. There was finally a breakthrough, and it was an unexpected breakthrough. It was an unexpected joy. The people from Hidden Dragon High School were invigorated when they heard this. They stopped beating around the bush and started to interrogate directly. As time went on, more and more things happened. There were also more and more useful clues. However, there were almost no clues related to the other principals back then. As the interrogation records were sent out one by one, the faces of Yi Chongqing and the others outside became gloomier and gloomier. Vice Principal Cheng, who had been masked all this time, did not have much hope when he returned. However, at this moment his body trembled slightly. "Old Cheng, don't be impatient." Yi Chongqing gently placed his hand on Vice Principal Cheng's shoulder. "This matter has serious implications. It's not something that a small Shao Dao League can do. We have to get to the bottom of this and take our revenge thoroughly. Otherwise, how can we let the dead rest in peace?" "Understood." Vice Principal Cheng's voice was hoarse. The teachers were all busy while the students were cultivating by themselves. At noon, Zhuo Xiaoduo still didn't go to the cafeteria. Instead, he He bought some food and went to Grandma Sher's house. But this time, he pounced on empty air. Grandma Sher, who usually lived alone at home, was not at home today. What a surprise! That the interrogation had gone on for an entire day. Finally, it came to an end. The sequence of events was indeed clear. However, what disappointed the higher-ups of the Hidden Dragon High School was that the higher-ups of the Tao League were indeed rotten to the core. They also had something to do with the tragedy of Vice Principal Cheng's family. However, this little bit of connection was insignificant. This time, dealing with Xiang Chong and Xiang Bing was indeed handled by the Tao League. There was indeed someone behind the scenes. However, this was the biggest problem. The person behind the scenes left no traces behind. There was almost no trace left behind. Back then, the Tao League was picked in the middle of the night. The 11 higher-ups, including their families, were all fed a poison pill. From then on, they were controlled by someone. However, the deeper problem was that they did not know who was controlling them. They were just puppets that floated to the surface. The higher-ups of the Tao League were indeed poisoned. They took their blood samples and confirmed that it was the 7-year spring that was said to be incurable. When Xingtian frowned, "There's no need for a test. The people of the Tao League are not fools. How could they not test it themselves to confirm the situation? Being controlled by someone else, they must be restricted by it." The 7-year spring was an extremely special poison pill. After taking this medicine, one would feel refreshed and energetic. They would also be full of enthusiasm and perseverance when doing things. If this was the only effect, this was simply a miracle medicine that had hundreds of advantages and no disadvantages. In fact, this 7-year spring was a health product developed by a research institute that researched health products. Once this health product was released, its clinical effects were so good that it became a commercial legend. At that time, this medicine was called the Eternal Spring Pill. However, this commercial legend lasted until 7 years later, when rotting corpses began to appear on a large scale in the mainland. After a strict investigation by the government, it was revealed that the miracle medicine was actually poison, and all the higher-ups and research labs of this company disappeared overnight. When the Eternal Spring Pill reappeared, it was already called the 7-year spring. Its effects were even better and more obvious than before. Because there were many more things added to it, it was also effective on high-level martial artists. However, its effects were two-sided. There were both benefits and harm. At the end of the 7 years, the harm would erupt and there would be no cure. Within 7 days, the body would rot and die without a doubt. This new Eternal Spring Pill was named the 7-year spring, also known as the 7-day ghost. It was actually very simple to not become a 7-day ghost. At the end of the 7 years, one just had to take another 7-year spring, and it would last for another 7 years. However, this also meant that after taking the first pill, one could only continue to take it. They could not leave it for life. However, the number of years one could take this medicine for was still a secret. The originally developed health product became a miracle medicine that could control people. This matter was also full of irony. However, they don't know who the person who gave them the 7-year spring was. The other party has never shown his true face. At the end of the day, this Tao-seeking alliance is just a puppet they control from below. It's dispensable, and they can give it up at any time. It won't hurt them at all. They can even use the existence of this puppet to gain insight into how much information we currently have. Yi Changqing frowned. When Xingtian said lightly, "However, there's still one thing that we can be sure of. The person back then must have come from Shangjing. As for the Eternal Spring Pill back then, it caused a huge uproar in the world and disappeared overnight. It must have been controlled by someone. However, there are not many clans that can do this. If we start the investigation from this direction, it should be much easier to find out, right?" Xiang Quangren added on. When Xingtian and Yi Changqing both rolled their eyes. "Easy to find out? You sound like you have a brain, but who wouldn't have thought of this?" The Eternal Spring Pill back then was much more important than the Hidden Dragon High martial arts incident. However, after so many years of investigation, have they found anything? Easy to find should be followed by 2 words. Bullshit. Now, We can only hope to interrogate the higher-ups of the Tao League. We'll see if it has anything to do with the brother-in-law of the king of Zhongyuan, Qiu Shaoqian. If Qiu Shaoqian also knows about it, then we can still dig deeper into this matter. If Qiu Shaoqian doesn't know about it, then this clue is as good as dead. That might not be the case. I can still check the emails that are sent to and fro. It won't be of any use. I'll check just now. These email addresses are all useless. They'll be discarded after they're used. The only useful piece of information is that the person who instructed them to deal with Xiang Chong and Xiang Bing recently sent us an email. In the end, we were able to find out that the address was actually from the Tao Alliance. When Xingtian sighed, the Tao League mainland, Xiang Quangren became more and more confused. He said, "Is there a need to make it so complicated to deal with Zhao's hidden dragon high martial arts?" Zhao's hidden dragon high martial arts? Yi Changqing, and when Xingtian couldn't help but smile bitterly. These words were really awesome. However, compared to the Umno Alliance mainland and the Tao League mainland, hidden dragon high martial arts was indeed nothing. Continue the interrogation. See if we can dig out any more useful information. As they were talking, Yi Changqing's phone suddenly rang. Chief Nan's voice sounded from the phone. Guangjin and Fenghe have been controlled immediately. All their personnel have also been arrested immediately. However, there was still a problem in the process. When they were arrested and interrogated, the higher-ups of these two companies, including a few financial personnel, died together. After confirmation, it was caused by the Soul Guider poison. Now, this matter is no longer just about hidden dragon high martial arts. Although all the clues in this matter were cut off immediately, more clues have been exposed because of this. Many of the email addresses are from the Tao League mainland. There's something fishy about this. Chief Nan said, "You guys focus on your side first. I'll personally keep an eye on this side." Chief Nan's voice was overflowing with uncontrollable anger. He probably didn't expect that under the circumstances where he had personally taken action, the people who had already been captured alive would be killed in such a way. Chief Nan was really angry this time. "Just you wait. I'll tear this huge net apart." "I don't believe it." Chief Nan hung up the phone. Soul Guider. Yi Changqing sighed softly. As the name suggested, this was also a slow-acting poison that existed in a person's body. However, it was controlled by a person. As long as the person was found to be uncontrollable or captured, the poison in the target's body would immediately activate with a thought, and the target would die suddenly. However, this drug, that Yi Changqing smiled bitterly. It was definitely not something that a small gang or family could control or use. Continue the interrogation. As for the interrogation of the higher-ups of the Tao League, it was as expected. It was just that someone remotely commanded and sent the mission over. The only two email addresses that could be checked were from the Tao League mainland. They were also disguised by many springboards. Moreover, they were two personal email addresses. As for the registered identities of these two people, they had actually been dead for many years, that the meticulousness of the plan was simply outrageous. Chapter 445. As for the Prince of Zhongyuan's brother-in-law, Qiu Shaoqian, he could only ask the Tao League's leader and say something ambiguous. Young Master Qiu probably doesn't know about it. We rarely talk about it when we're together. Young Master Qiu also rarely asks about the Tao League. Young Master Qiu doesn't care about how we earn money. He only collects money. When there's trouble that we can't handle, he'll come out and solve it. It's always been like this. In the end, most of the people who asked about the Tao League were released, but the 130 people who were identified as the core members were still detained. They were handed over to Grandma Shi, Vice Principal Liu, and a few other families to deal with. These people were guilty of heinous crimes and deserved to die. It meant that so many things had happened in the Hidden Dragon High School these years, but they couldn't find the real culprit. Although these people weren't the real culprit, they didn't have much to do with what happened in the past. However, they couldn't be separated from the recent events. If the Hidden Dragon High School wanted to vent their anger, they could do whatever they wanted. After that, Starshield would be in charge of cleaning up. However, Granny Shi only laughed mockingly at this punishment before flying away. Kill? If I, Yu Jian, wanted to kill, would I have to wait until now? If I wanted to kill a few people to vent my anger, would I have to wait until now? In the end, it was Vice Principal Cheng's youngest son, the head teacher of the third grade class, Cheng Xiaosong, who personally killed these 130 people on the spot. However, the Dao League's leader, 2 vice leaders, 4 elders, and 4 hall masters were held back by Wen Xingtian and Xiang Quangren. Let's interrogate them for a while more, at least a week. Squeeze as much information out of them as possible. As for the few survivors who carried out the mission against Xiang Chong and Xiang Bing, they were directly smashed into minced meat by Xiang Quangren. Xiang Quangren turned around and glanced at the faces of the people behind him. He suddenly laughed strangely and said gloomily, "Vice Principal Gao, why is your face so ugly? You must be in a high position and have lived like a prince in the Gao family. You rarely see such a bloody scene, right?" When Xingtian only felt a rush of anger. He angrily rebuked, "Vice Principal Xiang, why do you always cause trouble in this school? What does Vice Principal Gao's expression have to do with you? Can't you fucking shut your shitty mouth?" When Xingtian really wanted to vomit blood. Although Vice Principal Gao had been trying his best to control himself, his face was still slightly pale. But who couldn't see this? Is Xiang Quangren the only one with sharp eyes? What kind of problem can your words solve? It will only alert the enemy, that's all. This idiot is simply incapable of accomplishing anything but good at spoiling everything. When Xingtian wished he could stuff Xiang Quangren's mouth with feces, Yi Changqing transmitted his voice, "Calm down." The current plan was simply too complicated and confusing. There wasn't a single good way to solve it. Let Xiang Quangren do as he pleases. It may not be a bad thing to alert the enemy. When Xingtian angrily tilted his head, but at this moment, he suddenly remembered something. He transmitted his voice, "Vice Principal, I want to let 2 of my students try to interrogate them." Yi Changqing frowned, "Zhou Xiaoduo? Li Qinglong?" When Xingtian said yes, Yi Changqing frowned tightly and said worriedly, "These 2 children each have their own mysteries. They could be the best choice for now. Maybe they can get out of this deadlock. But I'm afraid that if we drag them into this big whirlpool too early, they will attract the attention of others. They can't resist such a huge wave at all. Act in secret. Only you and I know about this," when Xingtian said. Yi Changqing pondered for a moment and said, "When you go over tonight, tell them about the risks involved. Ask them if they are willing. If they are not, don't force them. This is a very dangerous matter. If you can avoid involving these 2 children, it's better not to. If only we had the Umno Alliance's mental cultivation method and the Heavenly Wizard Soul Search." When Xingtian expressed his deep regret, Yi Changqing grinned and said, "That's the Umno Alliance's secret method. Even in the Umno Alliance, only a few important people in the Stargate sect are qualified to cultivate it. Once it appears in the astral souls, they will immediately become targets to be killed. How can anyone on our side be able to master it? Even if they do, who would dare to expose it?" When Xingtian's thoughts were purely whimsical. Let's just say it and be done with it. "Old Cheng, what do you think?" Yi Changqing looked behind him at Vice Principal Cheng, who was still standing there quietly with his face covered. He was just standing there, but no one could feel him. It was as if he no longer had any sense of existence. There was no vitality, no aura, and no anger or sorrow. No one would notice if he came, and no one would notice if he left. After years of living in hiding, he was used to this state, and so were others. "I have nothing to say. Keep looking." Vice Principal Cheng's voice was light as he said, "I'll go find Snake King." The Dao League was related to Vice Principal Cheng's family, but it was only a plan. The specific matters were handled by someone else. And the person who was related to this specific matter was a person with the nickname Snake King. This Snake King was his new target. When Xingtian suddenly had an idea and said, "Old Cheng, don't be impatient. I'll find someone to read your fortune and ask about your future." Vice Principal Cheng looked at Wen Xingtian with eyes full of surprise. "Xingtian, when did you start to believe in swindlers?" "I'm not a swindler." When Xingtian said angrily, "What can you do if you wait for an entire night?" Vice Principal Cheng snorted and still didn't think much of it. "Old Cheng, just wait for one night. Hidden Dragon High can't afford to lose, and neither can we. Yi Chongqing pressed on Vice Principal Cheng's shoulder with his hand. Vice Principal Cheng was stunned and said calmly, "Okay, I've waited for more than 10 years. One night won't make a difference." Grandma Sure went home. Although she was investigating what had happened in the past, Grandma Sure's heart was as calm as an ancient well. She had only gone over this time because she was holding on to the slightest bit of hope. Now that it was over, she could go home. The old man was still waiting for her to have lunch. Nothing else was more important than accompanying the old man. Just as she reached the door, she saw a piece of white paper stuck in the crack of the door. Grandma Sure was startled. Was this a messenger? She opened it and saw a line of words written on it. "Grandma Sure, I'm here again. Ha, I got first place in the trial this time. Well, ha ha, I wanted to have lunch with you, but you weren't here. I put the food at the door for you. I'm leaving. I still have classes in the afternoon." There was a big smiley face drawn below. It was a smiley face with a crooked mouth. Then there was the signature, Xiao Duo. Grandma Sure looked at this piece of paper for a long time. She couldn't help but smile. There was a trace of warmth in her eyes. She muttered, "This little monkey." For a moment, her eyes curved. Her heart, which had been calm for a long time, seemed to ripple slightly. She opened the door and went in. There was a big food box at the door. It was placed neatly, and there were 2 bottles of wine beside it. Grandma Sure opened the door and took the food box in. She also took the 2 bottles of wine in. She took out the dishes and placed them neatly on the table. She opened the wine and poured 2 cups. She smiled gently. "Old man, you saw it, right? Do you like this little monkey?" She picked up the wine cup and drank it. She smiled faintly. "I want to take care of this child for a few years. While waiting for our matter to come to an end, I want to see this child more. What do you think?" "Don't worry. The fetters of the world can no longer hold me back. It's just that these few years, it's good to have something to do." Grandma Sure rambled on and on. She drank 1 cup and 1 cup, and the 2 bottles of wine were drunk just like that. Her skinny body sighed softly and muttered, "Old man, looking at this, it involves a lot. I'm so tired. Old man, I'm so tired. If it goes according to the current situation, I might not be able to wait until that day." Grandma Sure sighed softly and was in a daze. After a long time, she slowly leaned on the table and fell asleep quietly. The wind came in from the door. The portrait fluttered gently. A corner of it floated and rested on Grandma Sure's shoulder. It was as if the Principal Sure in the portrait was reaching out a hand and patting his beloved wife's shoulder, comforting her silently. Zhuo had already returned to the villa. Li Qinglong had also returned. The school was in a mess. It was better to cultivate at home. The commotion today was really big. If not for the fact that the martial arts Hidden Dragon School is one of the top 3 martial arts masters in the continent. This person's combat power is shocking. Li Qinglong said, "Why do you think Xiang Chong and Xiang Bing haven't appeared yet? I think it's almost done by tomorrow. The 2 of them can be considered as the key figures in this incident. If they appeared earlier, some things would be hard to say." Zhuo was also very nervous this time. "My tower of annihilation. Sigh. Why isn't it back yet? Sigh. It can't really be swallowed by me, right?" Yeah. Li Qinglong was operating in front of the computer. Suddenly, he was stunned and said, "You're very popular now." "Ah?" Zhuo never paid attention to the news on the internet. Basically, he did not go online. Hearing this, he was stunned for a moment. "What's wrong?" Li Qinglong's expression was very strange. "I should say that both of us are very popular. Leader's high martial arts career. Damn, this is..." Zhuo came over to take a look. It was a high-definition photo of Li Qinglong holding down Xiang Bing and beating her up. Next to it was a photo of Xiang Bing's beautiful life, followed by a photo of her beautiful face being punched by Li Qinglong. Blood splattered everywhere, and her facial features were distorted. "Damn," Zhuo grimaced. "Teacher one doesn't allow us to watch our classes, right? Where did these come from?" Li Qinglong coughed. "This is not class. You 2 are secretly doing it?" Zhuo's face was full of gossip. "What do you mean by secretly doing it?" Li Qinglong was a little dissatisfied. Looking at the leader's high martial arts career, one photo after another, in the cafeteria, on the road, and many of them were photos of Zhuo's upper body or half of his face. Therefore, a group of people below posted, "King of Swords is here too." King of Swords. I think I saw King of Swords. What do you mean by think? Be bold. Remove these two words. Then there was a photo of Zhuo fighting in the cafeteria. Beside him, Wu Yunhai looked anxious. Chapter 446. Then, Zhuo and Wu Yunhai were talking. It was actually a video. Although it was not high definition, it was the kind that could be heard. Below, a group of people commented, "I thought that when the Sword King went to Fenghai, he would definitely fight with the Wu family. After all, he killed their genius clansman." Someone below snorted, "Child, you are still too naive. How many years has the Wu family been a big family? Can't you understand this kind of powerful relationship? If something happens to the Sword King now, can they get away with it? What's more, how do you know that the Sword King has no one to support him? You are really too stupid and naive. Are we just going to let bygones be bygones? Tisk, to be on good terms with a genius like the Sword King, there will only be benefits in the future. Okay? The person above is a genius. +1, +2, ... Then, there were scenes after scenes. Zhuo and Wu Yunhai, Zhuo and Wu Qing, Zhuo and Gao Qingxiang, Zhuo and Gao Qingyun, that they were all chatting happily with sincere expressions that in a few pairs of eyes, one could even see the changes in the eyes of the people in this photo. Below, there were also countless people interpreting. Li Chenglong was full of confusion. Is this the life of the sect leader or the life of the Sword King? How is it that you have more content than me in this high martial arts student post? This is like a turtle dove occupying a magpie's nest. Zhangguan Li Li No Li Guan Zhuo. Zhuo smiled faintly and flipped down page by page. Until that night, the photo of the two of them meeting Gao Qingxiang and his sister. Gao Qiao looked at him with a charming smile. Her beautiful face, pure temperament, and beautiful figure were vividly set off under the neon lights. Like a dream, down in the comment section below, there was a wolf howl. "I love it. So beautiful. Already. Sword King, you're so lucky. This is a delicate flower of the Gao family, one of the 4 great beauties of Fenghai City. Obviously, Miss Qiao has taken a fancy to the Sword King. Oh, Miss Qiao, look at me. Sigh. The Wu clan is still not good enough. Look at the Gao clan. They're even using the beauty trap. It seems like they're really going to be a family with the Sword King. But why do I still feel that it's very strange? Do these big families and big corporations all do things like this? Brother, let me tell you, what is a human life worth? Benefits were paramount. As long as there were long-term benefits, what was a momentary grudge? Haggling over a dead person to the end? The people in charge of big clans always know how to choose. You're right. The Sword King is truly blessed. A group of geniuses making friends, and great beauties using honey traps left and right. Sigh. I'm so jealous. That's right. The life of a genius like the Sword King is so dull and dull. Fuck off. I also want such an ordinary life. +1, +2. Looking at the comments, there were already tens of thousands of comments. Basically, there were tens of thousands of comments under every post and countless reposts and reposts. There were also some busybodies who simply created a post titled, "The Sword King's high martial arts life is so dull and boring." And it actually became very popular as Zhuo and Li Chenglong huddled in front of the computer, and both of them had a curious look on their faces. TSK. How did he become popular? They casually searched for the Sword King, and instantly, more than 70 million search results were displayed. The first few thousand pages were all about Zhuo. This isn't normal. Zhuo was perplexed and scratched his head. Li Chenglong also scratched his head. Even if the entire Central Plains tournament was broadcasted live, it might not be able to get so many views and searches. There are simply too many. There are traces of manipulation and space in this. What's the purpose? What's the point of doing this? Maybe it's to make money? With such a large number of views, the profits must be considerable. Li Qinglong said, but it's also possible that it's the Gao family and the Wu family. Currently, we don't have much contact with the Gao family and the Wu family, but we already have so much relevant information. More importantly, there are quite a number of people who are faintly leading the charge in the comments. Li Qinglong pointed and said, this. If we analyze it in detail, we can see it. It's just that it's not so obvious. Of course, as long as it's not continuously leading the charge, then there's no problem. In other words, this is a type of very clever tactic. As Xiaoduo said, even if that's the case, what benefits can leading the charge bring? By controlling the direction of public opinion, we can turn it in a way that benefits us. Then, who benefits from leading the charge now? Li Qinglong sighed and said, as far as I'm concerned, these current tactics are still somewhat low level. But this is just the beginning. With the abilities, wisdom, and tactics of the big families, there should still be a reversal. But if everything goes smoothly, it won't be credible. Xiaoduo was about to speak when the phone rang. Xiaoduo glanced at the caller and instantly dashed to his room on the second floor. He slammed the door shut and locked it from the inside. Then he pressed the call button. Miss Nian Mao. You miss me? Zhui Xiaoyan's voice came from the phone. She sounded a little coquettish. Dog, if I don't call you, don't you know how to call me? Zhui Xiaoduo said, feeling wronged. In all honesty, how would I dare to call you? What if you were on a mission and my phone rang? Wouldn't I be harming you? Miss Nian Mao. Call me Big Sister. Okay, Miss Nian Mao. Zhui Xiaoduo lay on the bed with the phone in her hand. She felt exceptionally good, infinitely good. She said, why did you suddenly call me? What's the matter? Just by hearing this snort, Zhui Xiaoduo could guess that Zhui Xiaoyan must be pouting. I see that you're very popular now. Your serial is everywhere on the internet. King of Swords, is that Gao Xiaober very beautiful? The head of the four beauties in Fenghai? Zhui Xiaoyan's voice was full of displeasure. The head of the four beauties, that girl you don't know? She's really unsightly. Sorry, Miss Nian Yin, you don't know my difficulties. That girl's perfume almost made me fall when we met. I used all my strength to control myself and barely didn't run away. Ayaya, I'm so pitiful. Zhui Xiaoduo hurriedly expressed her loyalty. I saw the two of you looking at each other. It was really beautiful. Say, I didn't see your difficulties? Zhui Xiaoyan was obviously jealous because of the pictures on the internet. That was why she called to criticize him. How could you be fooled by Zhui Xiaoduo with just a few words? Miss Nian Yin, you don't know. That Gao family obviously saw my talent and made a decision on the spur of the moment. They clearly want to harm me. I'm in the middle of the situation now and have to deal with them. The most important thing is that Gao Xiao most likely has body odor. That smell is really unpleasant. It's hard to stand up to. Zhui Xiaoduo's tongue was glib. After degrading Gao Xiao, he began to degrade the girls in the class. In short, in the entire Hidden Dragon High School, and even the entire Fenghai, there wasn't a single beauty. They were all ugly melons and crack dates. Zhui Xiaoduo directly used Xiang Bing and the others' disfigurement as an excuse. The implication was self-evident. Nian Yin Cat, don't worry. I'm full of ugly girls. They're all useless. They're not a threat to you at all. Even though Zhui Xiaoyan had already seen the pictures of many of Fenghai's enemies, she didn't really believe such nonsense. She felt comfortable listening to it. She didn't harp on this topic anymore. Instead, she began to talk about what she had seen and heard. She talked about how her work was going smoothly, how easy the tasks were, how fast she progressed, and how all the members treated her. Zhui Xiaoduo didn't believe a single word of this nonsense. However, he said that he believed it without a doubt. After a full 20 minutes, Zhui Xiaoyan reluctantly hung up. Her last sentence was, I'm telling you, dog. You better be honest. Otherwise. Finally, the phone was hung up amidst a series of hums. Zhui Xiaoduo held the phone and laughed foolishly for a while. Although he didn't believe it, he could hear that Nian Yin Cat was living a happy life. However, this was enough. He could do it. During this period of time, they had been contacting each other via text messages. It felt good to suddenly receive a phone call and hear a real voice. When I break through, I'll rush straight to Shangjing and give Nian Yin Cat a big surprise. Yes, give her a big gift. I'll give her a living person like me. Nian Yin Cat will definitely be very happy and excited to accept it. On the other side, Shangjing. Zhuo Xiaoyan hung up the phone and walked out of the Nine Heavens Pavilion. Her face was cold again. As she walked out, it was as if a 10,000-year-old ice and snow had appeared. The temperature of the entire hall dropped instantly. Captain, there were 7 people outside. All of them stood straight and looked at Zhuo Xiaoyan. Zhuo Xiaoyan nodded slightly and said coldly, "Let's go." She flew out in a cloud of frost. The 7 people didn't dare to delay and followed her with all their might. They wanted to carry out their mission. Along the way, everyone felt that winter was coming. The 7 of them were speechless. Their captain was beautiful and fairy-like, but her personality was really too cold. It was as if she didn't know how to smile. A few young experts from the Nine Heavens Pavilion were originally interested in Zhuo Xiaoyan. However, within a few days, they all turned into popsicles and almost froze to death. With such a captain, it was easy to complete the mission. As long as the informant reported it, the mission would be assigned. The captain would go out and scatter a cloud of frost. The mission would be completed. However, the captain's strength was too strong. The team members didn't have a chance to perform at all. Although the 7 of them were team members, what they actually did was to follow Zhuo Xiaoyan and do odd jobs. After she finished, everyone would go to clean up the mess, collect the heads, identification, wealth, and other information. There was nothing else to do. Take action? You're thinking too much. It won't be your turn no matter what. Monthly tickets, recommendation tickets, and subscriptions. Give me some. Chapter 447. This Lord Civet was extremely fast. Even if they tried their best, they could not catch up with him. This time it was the same. The 7 of them ran as fast as they could, trying their best to keep up with the white shadow in front of them. Finally, they reached their destination. The team leader used his divine sense to explore the area. Then, he dashed out like a bolt of lightning. A wave of extreme coldness rose from the other side in front of him. Clang, clang, clanged out after a few sounds of weapons colliding. There was a sudden silence. A chill quietly spread out. Everyone looked at each other. It was over again. Why was there a need to say again? It was like this every time. Everyone was used to it. This courtyard house built on the outskirts of the city had almost turned into an ice sculpture. Then, a white shadow flashed. Zhuo Xiaoyan's figure appeared on the roof calmly. As she stepped on the roof, white frost spread. In an instant, it became a world of ice and snow. At this time, the 17 members had just calmed down the instability of their vital energy caused by running with all their might. "Clean up," Zhuo Xiaoyan said lightly. Then, the white shadow flashed and flew away. She did not stay any longer. The 7 of them said in unison, "It was this job again." They ran so fast that they were out of breath. However, they still could not make it in time to take action. They could only clean up the mess. When they wanted to take a look, yes, it was really to clean up the mess. There were only ice sculptures everywhere. 2 of them were holding broken swords in their hands. They were already decapitated. However, their wounds were in a completely frozen state. Not even a drop of blood could be seen. The whole scene was clean. There was no smell of blood. "Let's get to work." One of the team members sighed. He began to verify the identity of the target. After confirming that there was no mistake, he called back to the headquarters. Then he began to clean up all the valuable things in this ice sculpture world. Following this team leader, the contribution points for completing missions every day are like falling from the sky. As long as we follow behind and run, we will have everything. One of the team members was speechless. "It's easy, but it's so easy that it makes me feel uneasy." Another team member said as he worked, "Be content with what you have. It's better than those few teams who are riddled with injuries every day." But there has to be a chance to show off. Sigh, I haven't used my sword in the past month, except for the daily sparring. Back in the day, I was also a genius. You think you're a genius. Now, do you know what it means to be thrown away when you compare goods and die when you compare people? It's true that I can't compete. Once I do, I'll lose all my confidence. But if I can't compete, do you think you can? Or perhaps, who dares to say that they can compete? It's fine if you get used to it. My self-esteem is being trampled on every day. If it weren't for the fact that I'm used to it, my mentality would have collapsed long ago. I've already accepted the fact that I'm a good-for-nothing. Me too. But this is pretty good too. Contribution points fall from the sky every day, and most importantly, there's no risk at all. Not to mention, the captain is a peerless beauty. Looking at a beauty every day, at least it's pleasing to the eye. Looking at beautiful women? I can't. That's a nice way to put it, but let me ask you, did you really watch it? Do you dare to look? Cough, cough. I really don't dare. That face is as beautiful as the sky. But this coldness really froze my heart. On such a hot day, when I look at her, my heart feels like it's frozen. I candy or something, it's a slip of the tongue. Me too. Our captain is no longer an iceberg. She's directly a glacier. I'm not afraid to be laughed at. After so long, I only know that the captain is very beautiful, but I really can't tell what she looks like. I don't dare to look. Once I look, my whole body shivers. That's right. It's said that the day before yesterday, a senior of the nascent soul realm was also frozen. He almost died. Who asked him to be a toad who wants to eat swan meat? He deserves it. But speaking of which, Civet seems to be about to advance, right? Once she advances, she can no longer be our captain. During this period of time, it's better for everyone to work hard. If we can advance together with Civet and be in the same group, it'll be really cool. I think it'll take a while. With her cultivation, she could have advanced long ago. It's just that she has been suppressing it. Now, no one knows how many times she has suppressed it. Anyway, it's definitely not just once or twice. She actually has to suppress it when advancing from the inner core realm to the nascent soul realm, and she can even suppress it multiple times. One of them was shocked when he heard this. Of course, if you want to go far in the future, you have to use suppressive means in every realm. However, the suffering is really more and more difficult with each realm. It's not something that anyone can endure. Captain's expression hasn't changed at all. Sigh, this kind of tenacity is already something that we can't compare to. That's true. The thorny road back then was really painful for me. I don't want to experience it again in this life. Good luck. Are you done cleaning up? Be more careful. If we complete the task without putting in any effort, if we miss anything when cleaning up the mess, we'll really be useless. Okay. Hey, did you guys notice? Someone suddenly stopped cleaning up and said thoughtfully, "Our civet. Did you guys notice that her luck is especially good?" When he said that, everyone began to ponder. That's right. Civet's luck can't be cured. A few days ago, the four of us went on a mission together. We were the last to arrive. Logically speaking, we shouldn't have had a chance. In the end, that guy risked his life to break out of the encirclement. He was so lucky that he ran into Civet and became an ice sculpture. That's nothing. Another person said disdainfully, 10 days ago, we went on a mission outside the city together. On that small mountain, Civet was walking by the side of the road. She used her hand to support a rock beside her. As a result, a rock fell down. Behind the rock was a blood spirit flower. Can you believe this? I remember now. That place was not remote at all. It was almost in the village. However, such a thin piece of rock had not been touched for so many years. When Civet arrived, she just casually supported it. It was actually the blood spirit flower, which is extremely rare in the whole continent. That's nothing. The most amazing thing is that the blood spirit flower is actually 7,000 years old. That's rare and priceless. That blood spirit flower can expand the meridians and eliminate all hidden dangers in the body. Moreover, it can increase one's understanding of the heavenly way. She rushed into the cave to catch the criminal and turned him into an ice sculpture during the battle. However, the rock wall froze and cracked, and a few boxes of hidden treasures appeared. Have you forgotten? That's amazing. Such luck. This kind of thing is so common. But how many days has Civet been here? Before she came, this kind of thing didn't happen a few times. It should be said, did it happen before? Is she the legendary person favored by the heavens? This sentence made everyone ponder for a while. Then, all of them seemed to be deep in thought. However, he continued to work even more diligently and diligently. At this moment, Zhui Xiaoyan was already in her own independent residence in the Nine Heavens Pavilion. It looked like a small room, but as soon as one entered, they would discover that it was a huge space that was a few thousand square meters in size. Not only was there a bedroom, washroom, toilet, training room, office, living room, tea room, and all sorts of other facilities, there was also a small isolated warehouse. It only took Zhui Xiaoyan a month to go from a small bedroom of 30 square meters to such a top-notch living condition. The door slammed shut. Bone-chilling frost immediately overflowed from the crack of the door. Gusts of cold air flowed out through the crack of the door, clearly showing an attitude. Don't disturb me. Outside, there were people coming and going from time to time. However, when they passed by this door, they would feel the bone-piercing coldness and couldn't help but soften their movements. And tiptoe past the door. Sigh. I really gave this lady the wrong code name. What's civet? I think it's better to call her world of ice and snow. Shut up. Aren't you afraid of becoming a popsicle? Oh. When Zhui Xiaoyan first came to the Nine Heavens Pavilion, she shocked everyone on the first day. On the second day, everyone knew that a peerless beauty had come to the Nine Heavens Pavilion. Moreover, it was the kind of beauty that was rarely seen in tens of thousands of years. On the third day, she directly froze all the covetous gazes. Zhui Xiaoyan even left behind a legend, catch a cold at first sight. A son of a high-ranking official heard about Zhui Xiaoyan's beauty, so he waited outside the Nine Heavens Pavilion. In the end, he only saw her once, and it was directly in front of him. The moment he saw her, he froze and was diagnosed with a cold. Others asked him how he felt. Beautiful, so beautiful. But I don't dare to look anymore. I'm a living person. I'm afraid of the cold. Zhui Xiaoduo hung up the phone, but didn't go down. She stayed in the room and concentrated on cultivating. It wasn't that she deliberately didn't want to bring Li Qinglong along. On the one hand, Li Qinglong was studying the things on the internet. On the other hand, in this round of cultivation, Zhui Xiaoduo decided to use the Dragon Blood Flying Dagger as the main auxiliary force. The dagger's energy storage was full, so naturally it should be used. After all, Fang Yinhua had also started to prepare for the manner. He believed that there would be a place to store energy for the Dragon Blood Flying Dagger soon, so there was no need to save it. After all, this thing was still a little strange. It was better not to let Li Qinglong know about it. At 7 o'clock in the evening, Zhui Xiaoduo absorbed the spiritual energy to the point of bursting at a faster speed than before. Just as she was about to start suppressing it, when Xingtian came. Come with me? Zhui Xiaoduo grinned. My energy storage is full, so I can't leave. Suppress it a little first. When I come back, I'll officially compress the vital energy. When Xingtian said, it's very important. Okay. Zhui Xiaoduo tidied up and stood up. It was not difficult for the current Zhui Xiaoduo to suppress it a little. After calling Li Qinglong, when Xingtian led the two of them out slowly. Teacher, why did I hear that the principal needs the best quality jade of astral souls to treat his injuries? Can you tell me the details? Zhui Xiaoduo asked curiously. Chapter 448. The Headmaster's Injuries. When Xingtian sighed softly and said, during a battle many years ago, the headmaster's heart was injured by his opponent. His opponent's heavenly pulse palm was very powerful, and the damage it caused was also very different from ordinary injuries. Ordinary healing methods were completely ineffective. After repeated attempts, we discovered that only the supreme gray jade of astral souls could temporarily suppress the injury. However, it could only temporarily suppress it and could not completely heal it. Then what is needed to cure the root of the problem? Zhui Xiaoduo asked. Jade of astral souls from the geocentric core. Jade of astral souls from the geocentric core. Zhui Xiaoduo asked in confusion. When Xingtian said, Let's put it this way. Although the jade of astral souls is a special energy crystal that fell from the sky, there are actually jade of astral souls veins in our continent of astral souls. Ordinary veins can only produce low-grade and middle-grade jade. However, there is a chance that high-grade jade of astral souls can be found in the core of the veins. On the other hand, in the core of a middle-grade vein, there is a chance that 1 or 2 pieces of supreme grade jade of astral souls can be found. Does that mean that the core of a large-scale vein is likely to produce jade of astral souls from the geocentric core? Zhuo Xiaoduo blurted out. When Xingtian shook his head and said, "It's not that easy. You may be able to find a considerable amount of supreme grade jade of astral souls in the core of a large-scale vein, but it is still very rare for a jade of astral souls from the geocentric core to appear. According to the ancient records, only in the legendary super large-scale veins where there are more than 10,000 pieces of supreme grade jade of astral souls can there be a qualitative change. Under special circumstances, the mutated product of the supreme grade jade of astral souls can only be found in the core of the vein. That is, the higher grade jade of astral souls or the geocentric astral souls. The geocentric astral souls are truly legendary items. But only that can cure the headmaster's heart disease. It can even completely dissolve the power of the heavenly pulse palm and transform it into the headmaster's own strength, allowing his cultivation to improve greatly. But where can we find such a peerless treasure? Not to mention the geocentric star soul. Even the peak-grade star soul jade has become increasingly difficult to obtain these few years. The headmaster's illness is not a secret. Many people don't even dare to come to Fenghai City because they want to curb the power of the hidden dragon martial school. Even if 1 or 2 pieces appear, they will immediately be sold at a sky-high price. The abnormal fluctuations in the price of the supreme grade jade of astral souls in Fenghai City these years are all due to the hidden dragon martial school. But they don't know that there is someone else behind the scenes. And it's someone who is specifically targeting the hidden dragon martial school. In the past, I didn't believe that wealth can do anything, but now I have no choice but to believe it. When Xingtian sneered and said, "If the price of a supreme grade jade of astral souls is calculated in star dollars, the market price would be between 100 million and 300 million. Of course, there is a price but no supply. But last year, a supreme grade jade of astral souls appeared in the Fenghai auction house, and it was sold at a sky-high price of 1.2 billion. The hidden dragon martial school had already offered a high price of 800 million, but the other party directly threw out 1.2 billion, causing us to suffer a crushing defeat. When Xingtian sneered and said, "The ambition of the wolf is as clear as day." Zhuo Xiaoduo sighed. It seemed that he really had to bleed. He couldn't save it. The principal should still have a lot of supreme grade jade of astral souls in reserve, right? Zhuo Xiaoduo asked, holding on to a sliver of hope. A lot? When Xingtian snorted and said, "If he still has a lot, why would he need to worry? The principal should not have more than 10 pieces of supreme grade jade of astral souls in his possession now. If he doesn't receive any more, there might be a break. And when the suppression of the supreme grade jade of astral souls is broken, the dormant heavenly pulse hand will immediately counterattack. Once that happens, the principal can only hold on for another 3 years at most." 3 years? Zhuo Xiaoduo's face was filled with heartache. What about after 3 years? Seeing Zhuo Xiaoduo's heartache, when Xingtian couldn't help but feel a little comforted. This kid actually knows how to feel for the principal. The principal's painstaking efforts were not in vain. After 3 years, the principal's heart meridian will be completely broken. Even the gods can't save him. When Xingtian said lightly, "Now, even if the hidden dragon martial school makes a move, the principal will try his best not to do anything. Once he does, it will consume too much of his vitality, and he will be unable to suppress the counterattack of the heavenly pulse hand." Zhuo Xiaoduo sighed and said, "I'm so pitiful." When Xingtian almost doubted his ears. He was talking about the principal. What was he pitiful for? Is it difficult to find supreme, grade jade of astral souls in the entire continent? Zhuoxiao's face was filled with heartache. He said, if you want supreme, grade jade of astral souls to suppress the injury, how much is the best price? When Xingtian smiled bitterly and said, how much? Even one piece of supreme, grade jade of astral souls is hard to find. If we have 1,000 pieces now, we can stabilize the principal's condition for 20 years. After 20 years, we can think of a way. But now, I'm afraid that even if we search the entire continent, we won't be able to find so many jade of astral souls. This kind of supreme, grade jade of astral souls, this kind of super large mineral vein, is basically located in the Umno Alliance and the Tao League. In the astral souls area, it has been a long time since we found one. When Xingtian sighed, Zhuoxiaoduo scratched his head again, scratched his head again. He deeply felt that the speed at which he made money was far slower than the speed at which he spent it. If that was the case, if one piece was worth 2 billion, then 1,000 pieces would be equivalent to 2 billion. 2 billion. As soon as this number appeared in his mind, Zhuoxiao's head tilted to one side, and he fainted with a painful expression. What's wrong with you? Did your primordial qi go astray? Or was there a mistake in the temporary suppression just now? When Xingtian was shocked and hurriedly supported him. Why did he faint while talking? Was he not too concerned about the principal? He did not expect this mischievous child to have such a pure heart. I'm fine. Zhuoxiaoduo was so heartbroken that he could not breathe. He muttered, I just feel that the principal is too pitiful. Good child. When Xingtian sighed and was deeply gratified. The principal will be very happy that you have such a heart. Zhuoxiaoduo was grief-stricken. Li Chenglong stood beside him, looking as if it had nothing to do with him. However, when he heard Teacher Wen speak and how gratified he was, Li Chenglong had an indescribable urge to laugh. He really wanted to say, Teacher Wen, you misunderstood. Zhuo was not heartbroken for the principal at all. He was heartbroken for his own jade of astral souls that, however, if he said this, he felt that he would be beaten to death by Zhuoxiaoduo on the spot. The most important thing was that he also had a piece of jade of astral souls. If he spoke rashly with Zhuoxiao's personality, he would definitely ask him to contribute as well. As far as Li Chenglong was concerned, although he would not be reluctant to part with it with Zhuo around, there was no need for him to stand out. Hidden Dragon's secret room. Zhuoxiaoduo had just entered and was immediately shocked. Yi Chongqing, Xiang Quangren, Vice Principal Liu in a wheelchair, and Vice Principal Chang wearing a mask. The most powerful people of Hidden Dragon High School were gathered together. Lastly, his homeroom teacher, Wen Xingtian, was also present. Zhuoxiaoduo suddenly felt that. Teacher Wen's status was very low. He could not help but give him a sideways glance. Wen Xingtian immediately understood the meaning behind his gaze. He was so angry that he slapped the brat and scolded, Brat, what's wrong with your eyes? Zhuoxiaoduo was slapped on the back of his head with a crisp sound. He grimaced in pain as he was slapped to the middle of the secret room. He was angry but did not dare to say anything. Li Chenglong, on the other hand, followed him in quietly. He did not dare to fool around. He was well-behaved and meticulous. I only need to watch Zhuo continue to court death and get beaten up. I'm very happy. Yi Chongqing could not help but laugh. This slap is really crisp. Xiang Quangren grinned. It's like eating a cucumber. Crunchy. Vice Principal Liu and Vice Principal Cheng also smiled. The four of them were all experienced people. How could they not see that this kid was a little monkey? He was the kind of kid who would tear down the roof if he was not beaten for 3 days. Zhuoxiaoduo, Li Chenglong, sit down. Yi Chongqing's expression was very gentle. Ah! Zhuoxiaoduo touched the back of his head and smiled bitterly. I'll just stand. I'll be prepared if I stand. I won't hit you anymore. I called you here for serious business. When Xingtian snorted, sit down. Zhuoxiaoduo jumped in fright and sat down. Li Chenglong could only sit down. Ahem, ahem. Yi Chongqing coughed and said, I called you here today because I might need your help with a few things. Please tell us, Principal. We'll do our best and go through fire and water, Zhuo Xiaoduo said respectfully. When Xingtian raised his hand again, ahem, don't hit him first. Hit him later. Yi Changqing dissuaded when Xingtian. Zhuo Xiaoduo was speechless. Two pairs of eyes rolled up at once. What do you mean? Are you waiting for me to finish my work before you hit me? Isn't this a typical case of not wanting to be a monk after you're done with your vegetarian diet? You're too arrogant to advise me like this. Aren't you afraid that I won't do my best? You're too magnanimous. Humph. Do you know that if I'm just a little more ruthless, your old life might end in 3 years? Sigh. I'm still too soft-hearted. Just give me your orders, principal. I'll do my best. Zhuo Xiaoduo cursed in his heart, but his face was full of loyalty. He had an expression that said, I sincerely respect you and love you very much. Even his voice sounded so sincere. The first thing is about your manifestation technique. I need to understand it on a deeper level. Yi Changqing said, I have 2 people here that I can show you. You can tell them according to their appearances and give them pointers. This is Vice Principal Liu and Vice Principal Cheng. Yi Changqing introduced, of course, I'll also look at Vice Principal Xiang and your teacher Wen. You can look at them all you want. Zhuo Xiaoduo said cautiously, Principal, please tell me more about my future. What's the specific direction? Yi Changqing said, first, you can check Vice Principal Liu's recovery progress. Can you confirm when he'll recover fully? Also, you need to know the direction of his enemy. Vice Principal Cheng wants to find Snake King. Which direction should we start looking for him? And Vice Principal Xiang's enemy. Yi Changqing coughed and couldn't continue. Zhuo Xiaoduo stared at him with his eyes wide open. He was dumbfounded. Chapter 449. These things? Everything that you want to tell just by looking at his face? Zhuo Xiaoduo swallowed his saliva and was a little speechless. This seemed to be a bit too much. Although, theoretically, I can tell all these, but who are you all? What cultivation level are you all at? Don't you have any self-awareness in your hearts? I'll do my best, but there's one thing I have to say. Principal, your cultivation level is too high. I may not be able to tell anything. Facing this group of big shots in front of him, Zhuo Xiaoduo did not dare to make any guarantees. He could only make it clear in advance and leave himself a way out. Just do your best. Yi Changqing said gently. Take a look at Vice Principal Liu first and see if there's any hope for him to recover. If there is, what's the key to recovery? Vice Principal Liu's hair and beard were already white. He sat peacefully in his wheelchair and looked at Zhuo Xiaoduo with a warm face. This old man who used to be all-powerful now exuded a feeling that he had seen through the world and was at ease. There was no trace of the domineering aura he used to have. He only had a kind face. As Zhuo Xiaoduo looked at him with a frown, he threw out a luck point to boost his manifestation technique. Among all of them, Vice Principal Liu was the one Zhuo Xiaoduo had the most confidence in. After all, Vice Principal Liu had lost all of his cultivation. Even though he still had his foundation, he wouldn't be able to suppress them with absolute strength. With the help of luck points, Zhuo Xiaoduo could still see a lot of things. Zhuo Xiaoduo looked at him for a while. After a moment of silence, he shook his head and said, there's no hope for him to recover in a short time. As for a long time, there's a faint purple light above Vice Principal Liu's head. There's great hope for him to recover. However, we still have to see when the light comes. Oh? Yi Changqing's spirit was lifted. He said, can you give an approximate time? Zhuo Xiaoduo's answer was already a surprise. Vice Principal Liu had been crippled for so many years. Was there still hope for him to recover? Just now, he included him in the list of questions because he had a slim chance. He did not expect there to be hope. Yes, Vice Principal Liu, please write something. Zhuo Xiaoduo said. All right. Vice Principal Liu smiled faintly and casually wrote the word yun. Clouds. Vice Principal Liu's magnanimity is something this student admires from the bottom of my heart. This character is written in a light and carefree manner, as if nothing will affect it. It truly shows that it has seen through the world of mortals and has no complaints or grievances. Zhuo said, "This kind of peaceful state of mind is the most beneficial for longevity. Yun Tong Yun, it's true that the sky is now covered by dark rain. There's no sun in the dark sky. However, once the heavenly wind blew and the dark rain dissipated, it would be time to recover. Or perhaps, there will be times when the winds and clouds meet. Master, a great opportunity will arrive unexpectedly, and good fortune will follow. The wind and rain will not always exist. There will be a time when it will dissipate. The only hindrance is the 4 points before the word yun. Vice Principal Liu, there are 4 great enemies suppressing and watching you." When Zhuo mentioned the 4 words 4 great enemies, Vice Principal Chung, who had been noncommittal, suddenly straightened his back. His eyes were shining as he looked at Zhuo. His aura suddenly increased, and he felt like a completely different person from before. "For great enemies," Vice Principal Liu glanced at Vice Principal Chung and said with a smile, "Where do they come from?" "The rain is above the clouds, above the head. They come from above. If it's a specific location, their location is higher than yours and their place is bigger than ours. There's only one place that can completely suppress us, and that's Shangjing," Zhuo said cautiously. "So, yes." Vice Principal Liu smiled. "That's right." He actually interrupted Zhuo's words. "How long will the recovery process take?" Yi Changqing asked expectantly. Vice Principal, the clouds follow the dragon, and the wind follows the tiger. When the hidden dragon soars to the 9th heaven, this cloud can overturn the rain above and soar with it. Vice Principal Liu's injury can be easily solved, and it's not impossible for him to recover in 1 day. Zhuo said it very confidently, as if it would definitely come true. Now the wind and clouds are rising. "Vice Principal Liu, if you want to recover, you can start to prepare the conditions you need. Otherwise, when the wind and clouds meet, we will not be prepared. That will be a pity, and it will be too late to regret. The opportunity will not come again," Zhuo reminded him. Yi Changqing took a deep breath and said, "Okay." Then he turned his head and said, "Old Liu, you heard it. Whatever you need, you must tell me and your family. You have to start preparing now." Vice Principal Liu smiled and returned to his previous state. He said indifferently, "Okay, look at you. You don't seem to care. I can't count on you." Yi Changqing said unhappily, "I will tell my sister-in-law in person tomorrow. She will be more concerned than you." Xiang Quangren said, "When will Vice Principal Yi recover from his injury?" Zhuo coughed and said, "He will recover very soon." "When is very soon?" Xiang Quangren suddenly became spirited. "It depends on the situation." "Cough, cough," Zhuo said vaguely. Xiang Quangren and the others frowned. Zhuo seemed to be unwilling to say. What was going on? What was going on? Was this also a manifestation technique? Yi Changqing looked at Zhuo thoughtfully and said, "Let's take a look at Vice Principal Liu." Vice Principal Chung had been sitting quietly at the side. At this moment, he seemed to hesitate. Then, he turned his head and looked at Yi Changqing with cold eyes. Yi Changqing nodded slowly. His eyes were full of seriousness and certainty. Vice Principal Chung sighed softly and slowly took off his mask. The moment the veil was taken off, Yi Zichen's eyes lit up. Yi Changqing, Xiang Quangren, Wen Xingtian, Vice Principal Liu, and the others all gasped at the sight. Wen Xingtian and Yi Changqing turned their heads. Obviously, they could not bear to look. There was a hideous scar on Vice Principal Cheng's face. It went from the outside of his left eyebrow to his neck under his right chin. It went straight down, and his flesh was torn. This scar directly divided his nose into 2 halves. In addition, from the middle of his nose, there was another scar that went straight down, separating his upper and lower lips. It went all the way to his throat. These 2 wounds were strangely grayish-white. There was also a faint, strange yellow light that was faintly flickering. This yellow light gave off a grand and majestic feeling. Such a hideous and cruel wound was grand and majestic. His originally elegant face was cut into a hideous and terrifying appearance by these 2 wounds. Even his facial features were distorted. The Sword of King Path. Xiang Quangren's lips trembled. He murmured, "This is the Sword of King Path?" Vice Principal Chung smiled faintly and said self-mockingly, "Zhuo, even if your physiognomy is heaven-defying, I'm afraid it won't be easy for you to see anything from my face, right?" Zhuo smiled bitterly and said, "Having a missing face is indeed a taboo for the physiognomy art. But Vice Principal Chung, the sword wound on your face is too obvious. It's impossible for people not to notice it." Vice Principal Chung said faintly, "That's why I cover my face all year round." Xiang Quangren took a deep breath and said solemnly, "It has something to do with the prince's mansion of the Central Plains?" Vice Principal Chung pondered for a moment and said, "It does have something to do with it, but it's not necessarily the fault of the other party. At the beginning of the incident, I almost caught a suspect. At that time, I don't know whether that person was panicking or not, but he just rushed into the mansion. Naturally, I was reluctant to let him go and followed him in. The people in the mansion suspected that I was an assassin. At that time, I was too anxious to catch the suspect and wanted to explain after I caught him. Unexpectedly, the Prince of the Central Plains suddenly appeared and attacked me with 2 consecutive swords." He smiled bitterly. "It was those 2 swords that almost killed me on the spot." He pointed at the wound on his face and said, "After those 2 swords, I knew I couldn't do anything, so I turned and ran. The Prince of the Central Plains didn't chase after me. I don't know if he recognized me or for some other reason, but he just stayed where he was and didn't move." Yi Chongqing sighed softly. "The Prince of the Central Plains, Sword of King Path, is fierce and domineering, grand and majestic. Once the sword is out, it dominates the 4 seas. Those who are hit by the sword will feel like they have been hit by the killing intent of the heavens. They will never be pardoned and will be a fugitive forever. It's already commendable that you can eliminate half of the killing intent." When Xingqian also said, "It's hard to hold anyone responsible for this. Of course, we believe in Vice Principal Chung, but no matter how we look at it, we can't blame the Prince of the Central Plains for interfering. His actions are reasonable and irreproachable. After all, we barged into the mansion without permission first." Vice Principal Chung was silent for a moment and said, "I should pay for my reckless actions. However, the Prince of the Central Plains, Sword of King Path, is really sharp. His cultivation is also very high. Even Boss Yi." He hesitated for a moment and said, "Even if it's Boss Yi, it's best not to go against him. When I faced those 2 swords, it was like an ordinary person suddenly facing an emperor who ruled the world. I couldn't even find the heart to fight back. In a moment of mental imbalance, I was defeated and devastated." Xiang Quangren and Wen Xingtian's expressions changed at the same time. They were all sensible people, and even more so, high-level cultivators. There were some meanings that didn't need to be said too clearly. Zhuo had been studying Vice Principal Cheng's face. His aura. The only thing that could be seen was a trace of resentment. It was a resentment that rose to the sky and couldn't be erased in 3 lifetimes. Zhuo could imagine how deep the hatred in Vice Principal Cheng's heart was. It was a kind of revenge that he wouldn't regret even if he died 9 times, or an obsession. Vice Principal Cheng's hatred soars to the sky. Zhuo looked at Vice Principal Cheng's face and sighed. He said, "Vice Principal Cheng, write a word for me to see." It was almost impossible to shake the enemy just by looking at his face. The only thing that could be done now was to take 1 step at a time and see if the accumulation of momentum and karma could be reversed under the general trend. Vice Principal Cheng thought about it seriously and wrote a word, hatred. Chapter 450. Enmity. Zhuo grinned. "All right, each and every one of you either have enmity, hatred, killing, or grievance." This word, Zhuo wrote the word enmity himself, but he could write it clearly. It was a person and a 9. 9 is the extreme number. The enmity of one person will last for 3 lifetimes. Zhuo looked at it carefully, and suddenly his expression changed. "What's wrong?" Yi Chongqing sensitively noticed the change in Zhuo Xiaoduo's expression. Zhuo Xiaoduo looked at the words seriously and sighed softly. Vice President Cheng, your family's enmity involves too much. Vice President Cheng frowned. Why? Zhuo Xiaoduo frowned and looked at the word again. He looked at Vice President Cheng's face again and hesitated for a long time. Yi Chongqing said, just say it boldly. Today's conversation can only exist in this room. When Xingtian also nodded heavily. Xiaoduo, don't have any scruples. Zhuo Xiaoduo took a deep breath and said, I do have some scruples because Vice President Cheng's family's enmity. I'm afraid that the royal family will be involved. If I may ask, is it convenient for you to reveal the marriage contract of the girl in your family? As soon as he said this, Vice President Cheng suddenly trembled and was dumbfounded. When Xingtian's expression changed, he said, Xiaoduo, be careful with your words. Yi Chongqing also looked at him curiously. Xiaoduo, how did you come up with the word royal? 9 is the extreme number, and the extreme number is also the most noble. It is related to people, and it is the world. And the most honorable person in the world is the 9 and 5. 9 is only half of the 9 and 5. In other words, it hasn't reached the position of the 9 and 5. So, although the person involved can't be the emperor, it must be related to the imperial family, or related to the imperial family's affairs. Zhuo Xiaoduo said faintly, this is not nonsense. 1 against 9. It may mean that he has many enemies, but it could also be because of one person. He went up against a big shot, which led to this disaster. I have always believed that there must be a cause and effect. There must be a reason for what happened back then. That's why I asked, is the boy in your family related to the royal family? Or is it a girl in the family who is related to the descendants of the royal family? This is an inevitable direction. In addition, the sword of King Path on Vice Principal Cheng's face contains the majestic aura of an emperor. At the same time, it also gathers the resentment of the heavens. This is also a type of declaration. Zhuo Xiaoduo's face was cold as he said, I call myself number 1 in Aspect Dharma. Aspect Dharma is the foundation of my life. I will never underestimate it, nor will I speak nonsense. Alas! There was a long sigh. Yi Chongqing turned his head and saw an indescribable bitterness on Vice President Cheng's ferocious face, as if Yi Chongqing had hit the nail on the head. So, is it really like this? Xiang Quangren said in surprise. Old Cheng Yu? Vice Principal Cheng slowly sat down, his face completely ashen. He murmured, when Xiao was born, she was beautiful and had the best aptitude in the world. At that time, I named her Chengfeng Xiao. I still remember that at that time, Chief Nin also came to drink a cup of wine because he happened to be there. And when Chief Nin was drinking, he happened to have a phone call with Commander Dongfang. He accidentally mentioned this matter, so Commander Dongfang sent Chief Nin a gift. After that, when Commander Dongfang knew Xiaober's name, he told me through Chief Nin that the name Chengfeng Xiao was too big. He was afraid that the little girl couldn't bear it, so he suggested that she change her name. I can only blame myself for being overjoyed at that time. I didn't take Commander Dongfang's golden words to heart at all. In my opinion, it's too normal for a girl to be named Xiao or Feng or Wanli or Bing and so on. There's no such thing as whether she could bear it or not. The child grew up year by year. I had already forgotten all the advice I gave when I was drunk. Until today, if it weren't for Zhuo Xiaoduo, I wouldn't have remembered it at all. Alas! Until Xiao was 18 years old, she was successfully promoted to the Hidden Dragon High Martial Arts School. She was outstanding among all the students and was known as the #1 genius. Then, she went to the capital with a sword and challenged the 2 High Martial Arts School. She suppressed the students of the same level with just a sword. She suppressed the 2 High Martial Arts School students of the same level and made them unable to breathe. It was also at that time that she caught the eye of the Crown Prince. Speaking of which, Xiao didn't know that the other party was the Crown Prince. After some contact, they both fell in love with each other and exchanged tokens. It was already 7 months later when Xiao found out that the person she liked was the Crown Prince. After that, the Crown Prince came to the Hidden Dragon High Martial Arts School and brought His Majesty's verbal order. At that time, everyone in my family only felt that great joy had arrived and that your presence brought light to our humble dwelling. Vice Principal Cheng's face was haggard and his heart was dead. He said, "But we didn't expect that." A month later, there would be a drastic change and a series of tragedies. The 5 children of the Cheng family all turned into vengeful spirits with grievances overnight. Xiao and her sisters were even more. Vice Principal Cheng's eyes were wide open. For so many years, I always knew that some forces at that time were messing with my brothers, but I never thought that. The root of it was this. Until today. Vice Principal Cheng looked at Zhou Xiaoduo and asked in a low voice, "May I ask, Master Zhou, why can't our Cheng family and Xiao accept this name?" Zhou Xiaoduo sighed, but without any hesitation, he wrote the words Cheng Fengxiu on the ground. He paused and said, "Vice Principal Cheng, these 3 words are indeed unbearable for ordinary girls. If it's a top family, it's fine. If it's an ordinary family at the bottom of the social ladder, it's still acceptable. But your Cheng family, can't accept it. Cheng, it's a product of the same sound. Xiao is the best in the world, but it doesn't mean that it can't be. The Emperor's selection," Zhou Xiaoduo said lightly, rising with the wind, showing off in the 9 heavens. How far can one show off depends on how strong the wind is. If the wind isn't strong, one can show off one's journey, one's city, or even one's Cheng. Zhou Xiaoduo wrote one after another on the ground. One's Cheng, one's city, one's journey. It was clear at a glance. However, if the wind is strong enough, it can directly rise to the 9 heavens and become the Emperor. However, if one wants to reach that level, how many difficulties and obstacles will there be? Vice Principal Cheng, do you think your family can handle it? Is the Crown Prince's east wind strong? It can even be said that this wind is even stronger than His Majesty's selection, because this is the east wind that could become the mother of the country. On the contrary, His Majesty's selection is weaker, because His Majesty's favorite concubines have reached the peak. It's difficult to go any further than that. With Vice Principal Cheng's family background, how can he withstand the suppression of the top forces? How many people are coveting this position? Many old families in Shangjing have been in business for generations, but they don't dare to try. Once they make a move, they must have full confidence. Otherwise, they'd rather not make a move. You're a hidden dragon clan genius who came out of nowhere and suppressed the geniuses of the present age. That's fine because you're just a brave man. But now, you want to soar to the 9 heavens and become the Emperor's side? If you're not unlucky, who will be? If you're a top family or have the strength to contend with them, there's no problem. Because you have the qualifications and confidence to form a marriage alliance with the royal family. On the other hand, if you're just a bottom family, even if you have this layer of fortune, you'll at most be a concubine of the Crown Prince. It'll be difficult for you to become the Crown Prince's side, but it won't be too much of an eyesore. Instead, there will be people who will work hard to raise your family and use this to gain the favor of the Crown Prince. Anyway, you're from the grassroots and won't be able to stir up any waves. It's not a big deal. However, you're not a top family, nor are you a bottom family. Your position just happens to be in the middle class, which is not awkward at all. This isn't the worst. The worst is that you have another identity, the vice principal of Hidden Dragon High School. One of the 3 high schools, the daughter of the vice principal of one of the 3 cradles of talents of the empire. From this position, you can almost see the empire's attitude towards the talents of the world. If you obstruct and use various methods to make Miss Cheng become the Crown Prince's concubine, you may be able to avoid trouble for a while, but there will be public opinion. That's inevitable. Because the daughter of the vice principals of the 3 famous schools is a peerless talent who can suppress the talents of the same level in the world. In the future, she will be an expert who can hold her own. Why is it that she can only occupy the status of a concubine in the imperial family, which is equivalent to a plaything? Even if the crown prince ascends the throne in the future, she'll still be an ordinary concubine, right? What does the imperial family think of the heroes of the world? But if you promote your daughter to the crown prince, Which of the old families in the empire will be convinced? Which one of them will be willing? Under such circumstances, once this news spreads, what else can you do? How can those families who already have plans just stand by and watch? They definitely won't allow your daughter to have any chance of survival. Even if she's disfigured, it's still hard to be at ease. Zhuo Xiaoduo's words were very cold and direct, but they were also very unpleasant to hear. However, Vice Principal Chung lost all his energy in an instant. His entire person seemed to have aged 100 years in an instant. Originally, his heart was filled with hatred and he vowed to take revenge. But now, he was told that he was involved in such a heaven-reaching matter. He actually hesitated all of a sudden. The storm inside was so big that even if the entire Hidden Dragon High School was involved, the splashing waves would be insignificant, and the waves would be difficult to stir up. The grudges of the imperial family have always been difficult to be clear. This time is most likely no exception. Zhuo Xiaoduo said, I even suspect that this matter. Vice Principal Chung, although you've been working hard to track down the culprit, I guess. The higher-ups have already settled many people's affairs in secret. Vice Principal Chung, this revenge is difficult. Zhuo Xiaoduo sighed softly. Seeking monthly votes. Recommendation votes. Subscribe. Chapter 451. After hearing that, Vice President Cheng's face was full of disappointment, and he looked even older. Looking at Yi Chongqing, his lips and body trembled. 2 lines of tears flowed out of his eyes, but he did not say anything for a long time. Beside him, Xiang Quangren asked suspiciously, Why does it sound so mysterious to me? It's just a name, and so many things have happened. Does that mean that if she was born with a different name, she could avoid all of this? Zhuo Xiaoduo said lightly, If I'm not wrong, Commander Dongfang should have given some suggestions at that time, right? Vice President Cheng nodded gently, tears flowing down his face. If I'm not wrong, it should be solo beauty or no beauty. Dance with the same voice or dance beauty is also possible. I wonder which one Commander Dongfang suggested? Vice Principal Cheng closed his eyes and felt endless regret rising in his heart. He squeezed out 2 words from between his teeth, solo beauty. Solo beauty. There's no need for wind to come, no need for clouds to hold her up. She'll be a lone flower, admiring herself. Maybe she'll be lonely for the rest of her life. But the Chung family can avoid this disaster. Well, solo beauty in this world, Miss Xiao may have the hope of reaching the top of this world. Zhuo Xiaoduo sighed softly. Commander Dongfang is really an extraordinary person. I'm sorry that I didn't meet him in person. In the room, the 6 people nodded at the same time. But then, when Xingtian glared at Zhuo Xiaoduo. This time, with the help of the 3 captured alive, we've followed the clues to the Dao League. After interrogation, we've confirmed that the clues are basically on the surface. But they're getting more and more obscure. Although the Southern Chief has said that he'll take over the follow-up, Yi Chongqing said, But what can we do here? In our opinion, it's like a mouse pulling a turtle. We have no clue, and we have no target at all. The Southern Chief said he'll take over the follow-up? Who's this person? Is he trustworthy? Zhuo Xiaoduo asked curiously. Nan Zhengxian, the Southern Chief of the Ministry of Finance, will personally take over this matter. There's no doubt that he's trustworthy. Yi Chongqing's face was full of respect. Difficult. Zhuo Xiaoduo snorted and said, Just by looking at the surname, I'm afraid it's useless to take over. Although Nan Zhengxian's name is unique and grand, it's too straightforward. Once he encounters indirect attacks and twists and turns, he's unable to do as he wishes. He's already having a hard time. It's hard for him to make a living, and he actually became the Minister of Finance. I don't know what the higher-ups are thinking. If it's so difficult for a Minister of Finance to make money, wouldn't it be? Shut up, when Xingtian shouted angrily. You think you can comment on this? How could this brat be so careless with his mouth? He actually dared to speak such nonsense, without restraint, judging the name of Southern Chief. He really didn't know what was good for him. Even though the name, Chief Nan of the South, had become a meme that everyone in the world knew, you still couldn't say it out loud like that. Department Head, Nan has already given you the Flaming Sun scripture. And you still say that. When Xingtian scolded angrily. What he meant was that Zhuo Xiaoduo had the right to say that. He had connections. That was because he had a close relationship with Chief Nan of the South. Of course, this was said for Vice Principal Cheng and Vice Principal Liu. As for Xiang Kuangren and Yi Chongqing, when Xingtian was absolutely assured. Vice Principal Liu smiled faintly. Vice Principal Cheng didn't think about this at all. He was just lost in his own thoughts. How could he take revenge in such a huge maelstrom? Zhuo Xiaoduo was stunned. Department Head Nan is Uncle Nan? But then he immediately changed the topic. This topic seemed to be very unfavorable for him. Vice Principal Cheng, it's not necessarily impossible for you to take revenge. Zhuo Xiaoduo said, the word enmity you wrote. You're not the only one who will remember this enmity. There are many people who are also thinking about it, and are also waiting for the moment of revenge. This sentence really couldn't be said more deeply. If it was said more, it would really be too deep, and the matter would be too big. Vice Principal Cheng sighed deeply. Sigh. With our current strength, we can't touch or capture the real mastermind behind the scenes. We can't completely destroy them, but it's not impossible to wound them. As long as we gradually cut off their wings and disintegrate them inch by inch, it's not impossible for us to move a mountain. It won't hinder us. We'll start the investigation now and look for evidence. When the time comes, we'll settle the score. As Zhuo Xiaoduo said, at the very least, we can still find the executors and the people who did it back then and kill them first. Everything won't hinder us. Our communication today has at least pointed out the final direction. As long as there's a target, the rest is just a process. It all depends on human effort. Vice Principal Cheng's lifeless eyes slowly brightened up. Yi Chongqing and the others were also refreshed. Yes, when it came to the extreme, there would be big shots coming out to clean up the mess. What they needed to do now, and what they could do, was to do their best to find evidence. Otherwise, they would be empty-handed when they needed it in the future. Vice Principal Cheng put on his mask again, trembling as he bowed to Yi Chongqing and the others. I'm sorry, big brother. The matter between Xiao Heir and the Crown Prince. I've been keeping it a secret. It's not that I don't trust you, but it's really too big. But I kept it a secret in the end. Vice Principal Cheng said each word with a heavy heart. I'm sorry, brothers. Yi Chongqing sighed deeply. That's what you should do. Old Six, if it were me, I would also keep it a secret. This is a great honor, but it's also a crisis. There's nothing to apologize for. You're too serious. Vice Principal Cheng sighed, feeling his heart getting heavier and heavier. For a moment, the atmosphere became unusually heavy and oppressive. Principal, you said you wanted us to help you with a few things. I wonder what else? Zhuo Xiaoduo asked. The atmosphere was too oppressive, so oppressive that Zhuo Xiaoduo's heart felt heavy. He had to break the deadlock. What's left is to interrogate the higher-ups of the Dao League. At the end of the day, these people are just executors. They're far from the core. Yi Chongqing smiled bitterly. We've defeated the Dao League. However, among the malicious forces targeting the Hidden Dragon High Martial Arts School, they're only the outermost organization. There's nothing worth paying attention to in all the confessions they gave. We don't have any clue about the next step for the time being. At this time, your teacher once suggested that you two interrogate them, or look at their confessions to see if you can find anything. Originally, Yi Chongqing and the others didn't agree with Wen Xingtian's suggestion. However, after experiencing Zhuo Xiaoduo's divination, they were suddenly filled with hope. Perhaps this strange young man would really be able to see something. About this, I think Li Qinglong can do it himself. Zhuo Xiaoduo smiled bitterly. As for the interrogation, I won't be involved. At least, I'm very ordinary in terms of torture. If you can't get anything out of the interrogation, we won't be able to do anything either. Yi Chongqing and the others also nodded helplessly. They carried a monstrous hatred with them. It could be said that they had exhausted all means to interrogate them. If these people could still hide something, it would be impossible for them to be interrogated by anyone again. To put it bluntly, this group of people even confessed to their mother's adultery when they were young. If Zhuo Xiaoduo could interrogate them and find something new, it would be purely wishful thinking. Zhuo Xiaoduo said, I think it's enough to let Li Qinglong look at their confessions and summarize the information. Let Li Qinglong take a look? Is that necessary? Yi Changqing had some doubts. Li Qinglong is knowledgeable and has a photographic memory. He can summarize and restore all the files he has read in a short time. He can be called a genius in intelligence. Zhuo Xiaoduo said, and after summarizing all the interrogation records, we can find the suspicious points that you didn't notice. That's the right way to do it. I see. Everyone finally understood why when Xing Tian and Yi Changqing insisted on letting Zhuo Xiaoduo and Li Qinglong take a look. It turned out that these two little guys really did have extraordinary abilities that ordinary people did not have. Where are the files? I'll go get them. Zhuo Xiaoduo coughed and said, Swollen, your job is here. Then he quickly hid to the side. Don't make me do it. This kind of job gives me a headache just by looking at it. Everyone could see that Zhuo Xiaoduo was avoiding them like they were snakes and scorpions. However, when they looked at Li Qinglong, it was a completely different reaction. Li Qinglong's face was filled with eagerness and impatience. It was as if he was a glutton who had been waiting for a long time and finally had a sumptuous meal. When Xing Tian carried the 1-foot-thick 5 stacks of testimonies into the room, Li Qinglong excused himself and sat down, cross-legged naturally. He took 10 stacks of testimonies and arranged them in a semicircle around himself. He opened them all. He read very quickly, as if he was reading 10 lines at a glance. After he finished reading, he immediately threw them out and replaced them with new ones. When Xing Tian wanted to help but was rejected, I'll do it myself. When Xing Tian stopped, he had wanted to help Zhang Xian flip through the books, but to think that Zhang Xian wouldn't allow it, seeing that Li Qinglong still had to wait for a while, when Xing Tian simply took out a tea set from his ring. He even moved a tea table to another corner and began to make tea. The few of them drank tea while waiting. Yi Changqing was still able to keep his cool. Vice Principal Liu was also very calm and drank tea peacefully. Xiang Quangren, on the other hand, kept looking back as if he was supervising Li Qinglong's progress. Vice Principal Cheng, on the other hand, looked like he could not eat to his heart's content. He poured cup after cup of tea into his mouth and probably did not even taste it. At this moment, his mind was filled with what Zhuo Xiaoduo had deduced. The emperor, the royal family. After pouring a cup of hot tea into his mouth, he lowered his head and 2 streams of tears streamed down his face. It was just as Zhuo Xiaoduo said. What kind of family did he have? How could his family have an empress? Although Zhuo Xiaoduo didn't say it clearly, the meaning behind his words was no more than this. At this moment, when he thought about it, Vice President Cheng almost wanted to slap himself to death. That's right. How could his family have an empress and rise to the top in a single bound? You must be crazy. You killed all the children. After investigating for so many years, you still did not find anything. You did not even know who did this to your family, not until today. If it were not for Zhuo Xiaoduo's reminder, he would still be in a dream. With your IQ, how could your family have an empress? As he drank cup after cup of hot tea, lines of tears dripped down his face. Back then, Marshal Dongfang had clearly reminded him that such an inside story of the royal family, not to mention himself, even the marshals would never dare to get involved. As for himself, decided in the blink of an eye, 2 hours had passed. Li Qinglong, who was reading the file attentively, suddenly raised his head and asked, was there a Golden Snake Gang in Fenghai City back then? Golden Snake Gang? This sudden question made them all stunned for a moment. Li Qinglong hurriedly added, about 20 years ago? It's about that time, not a few years apart. Chapter 452. Xiang Quangren nodded and said, You're talking about 20 years ago? At that time, there was indeed a Golden Snake Gang. Li Qinglong asked, What was the name of their leader? The leader seemed to be called. Xiang Quangren pondered for a moment and said, Sky-turning Python, Shiyu. Shiyu. Hearing these 2 words, Vice Principal Cheng raised his head at once. An elder of the Tao League and Hall Master Zhu were both from the Golden Snake Gang. Vice Principal Xiang, do you remember how big the Golden Snake Gang was back then? How was its foundation? Li Qinglong asked. The Golden Snake Gang back then had about 10,000 people. It was the second to none underground force in Fenghai City. The leader of the gang, Sky-Turning Python Shiyu, was also an extraordinary master. The five-colored snake army under his command controlled the entire underground world of Fenghai City. Of course, it was only relative to the underground world of ordinary people. When Xingtian said word by word, his enunciation was clear. He knew that since Li Qinglong asked this question, he must have his reasons. 20 years ago, Li Qinglong didn't seem to exist, right? Since the Golden Snake Gang was the second to none underground force at that time, why did it disappear? Li Qinglong asked. It was said that they offended a big shot. They were uprooted overnight. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. More than 3,000 people died in one night. The higher-ups were all killed and scattered. The other low-level sect members either fled in all directions or were recruited by other sections. Their territories were also divided up in a very short period of time. The elder of the Dao League and Hall Master Zhu that Li Qinglong mentioned just now joined the Dao League at that time. First, they joined the League, and second, they sought refuge. When Xingtian said, "Oh, then where did the leader, Snake King, and the 5 snake venerables under him go?" It is said that they were killed on the spot, but we don't know the details. Because of that operation, our hidden Dragon High Martial School only knew about it the next day. When Xingtian said, "How long has it been since the destruction of the Golden Snake Gang and the incident at Vice Principal Cheng's house?" Li Qinglong asked. Vice Principal Cheng said, "The tragedy happened on the 13th of July. Yes, Golden Snake Gang was destroyed on June 19th. Li Qinglong waved the file in his hand. "May I ask, Vice President Cheng, did you have a distinguished guest before June 19th? Li Qinglong asked. Vice Principal Cheng closed his eyes in pain. "The guest came in May. Then, basically, all of them are connected." Li Qinglong put away all the files, closed his eyes, and quietly thought for 10 minutes. It should be in this order. At that time, Principal Yi, Principal Xiang, Principal Shi, and Principal Lu's family matters had already changed. Yes, something has already happened. As for the misfortune in Vice President Cheng's family, it could be said that there was a long time between the misfortune of the previous presidents. Yes, Li Qinglong said, "If that's the case, I'll make a bold assumption. That is, the people who went against Principal Yi, Principal Xiang, Principal Shi, and Principal Lu are not in the same gang as those who went against Vice President Cheng's family. They don't belong to the same force. If they were in the same group before, then they were in another group after that. These are two different things, and they can't be compared. They should be mixed together. However, after the previous people dealt with the principals, the group who went against Vice President Cheng shifted the blame of them targeting the Cheng family to the previous people because of the series of misfortune. It made you think that this was a coherent operation aimed at shaking the hidden dragon martial arts. But it wasn't. Li Qinglong said firmly, "Absolutely not. Although the group of people in front of us deserved to die, they were the scapegoats of the vice principal's family." The Hall Master Zhu, I noticed, was only the leader of the Golden Snake Gang at that time. In his confession, there's a sentence that I'm particularly concerned about. That year, the gang leader and the venerables went missing overnight. When they went missing, everyone subconsciously thought that they were dead. Because the Golden Snake Gang was destroyed overnight, how could they, as the highest level, be spared? This was a matter of course, a matter of course. Even Hall Master Zhu himself knew this. But in my opinion, this sentence could also mean that they escaped, or they didn't see the corpses and were captured, or they were done something else. Li Qinglong said, "The reason why I have a different opinion. Let's take a look at the time and ask about the Dao League being controlled. It happened a year before the Golden Snake Gang was destroyed. At that time, the gang leader and the vice gang leader had already taken the spring of 7 years. A year before the Golden Snake Gang was destroyed, Miss Cheng hadn't gone to the capital yet. It wasn't to the extent that she attracted the attention of various forces. So, at this point in time, the reason to deal with the Chung family wasn't valid. A year ago, someone else was setting up the Tao League. At that time, the real strength of the Tao League was far from enough. They could only control it and wait for an opportunity. After that, the Tao League was still not qualified to take part in the affairs of the other principals. Naturally, they didn't participate in it. At least that's what it seemed like. And the clues were cut off here. Li Qinglong said confidently. In summary, before this, although the Tao League was controlled, it didn't do anything in the incident that year. If we investigate from this direction, of course, we won't be able to find anything. After the Tao League took in new blood, it didn't pull them down during the spring of 7 years. This shows that the person behind the scenes attached great importance to the control of the Tao League. He should be keeping it for future use. Then, we can put the Tao League aside for the time being. That's because this organization was taken down before it could be used. Li Qinglong pointed to the other side and said, "What we should be concerned about now is the Golden Snake Gang. The biggest problem with the Golden Snake Gang is what kind of grudge caused it to collapse overnight? I really don't know." Everyone shook their heads. Anyway, there were all kinds of rumors at that time. But this matter has nothing to do with us. We only heard rumors. Let's forget about it. Sigh. Li Qinglong sighed and said, "It was less than a month after the Golden Snake Gang was destroyed. The Chung family was attacked by 2 groups of people. Judging from various clues, it should be between 4 to 6 people." Li Qinglong was very reserved, but everyone understood the tragedy at that time. This number is basically consistent with the 6 high-ranking members of the Golden Snake Gang who went missing. Li Qinglong said this after careful consideration. Also, in the confession, Hall Chief Zhu said something that I'm quite concerned about. The Chung family tragedy at that time seems to be the work of Snake King, right? If I'm not wrong, Vice Principal Chung is in a hurry to leave because he wants to find Snake King, right? Vice Principal Chung said, "That's right." Then, are you sure it's Snake King? Or Shiyu? Li Qinglong blurted out. Vice Principal Chung was stunned. He did not speak for a long time. Snake King? Shiyu? Now that we've peeled off layer by layer, I think I can make a bold assertion. Li Qinglong pondered for a moment and carefully went through his thoughts again. He thought carefully and confirmed that he did not miss anything. Moreover, his argument was valid. He said, the destruction of the Golden Snake Gang at that time should be just a cover. Overall, the Golden Snake Gang might have been really messed up, scattered, and destroyed. However, the important people in the upper echelons did not die. This is especially true for the few people below the gang leader. They simply used this opportunity to disappear and become some people's black gloves and murderous knives. They specialize in dealing with some dirty matters that they would not be able to deal with under normal circumstances. From the fact that this Hall Master Zhu went to the Tao-Seeking Alliance and then controlled the Tao-Seeking Alliance, I even suspect that the important members of the Golden Snake Gang actually didn't die. They merely used their deaths as an excuse to change their names and enter other gangs. As long as we investigate these gangs carefully, we should be able to find traces of them. Of course, this is another aspect of the matter. Right now, the main topic is to discuss the whole story of the tragedy at Vice Principal Cheng's house. I'm certain that this Shiyu and the 5 snake venerables under her are related. If Vice Principal Chung wants to vent his anger, you can start from this direction. You should be able to gain something. Li Qinglong said, but this Shiyu, the former gang leader of the Golden Snake Gang, although he is no longer a gang leader, there is no doubt that he has sought refuge with the nobles. Therefore, in these years, the progress of his cultivation must be calculated by leaps and bounds. It cannot be judged by normal standards. If he is still alive, he must be a master of his generation. After all, he was already a gang leader more than 20 years ago. Moreover, his cultivation is at least above the cloud transformation realm. Li Qinglong said, with Vice Principal Cheng's strength alone, even if we find the murderer, the situation may not be optimistic. Li Qinglong's analysis really gave everyone a fright. No one expected that a gang that was confirmed to be destroyed more than 20 years ago, which no one had paid attention to, would be found out by Li Qinglong just by appearing in the dossier. He even used this as a dividing point to draw two lines. However, the Tao League's methods this time are exactly the same as what happened back then. What do you say? Xiang Kuang said. Vice Principal Xiang, you are wrong. Moreover, you are wrong about two key points. First, this matter is not about the mastermind of the Tao League. It is about the people behind it. However, the other party is too cunning. It is difficult to find clues. Second, the people sent this time are only in the inner core realm. They are far less powerful than the people sent last time. Last time, they were thunderous. This time, at most, they're just trying to get lucky. Furthermore, there is a third reason. The operation this time was arranged on the spur of the moment, so it could not be considered very strict. Furthermore, they were thinking that if they succeeded, they would let the other party, that is, the power behind Shiyu and her gang, and let them take the blame for them. I'm not bragging about this chapter, but those who haven't read the recent updates carefully won't be able to understand this chapter. I need to go back and take a look. Cough, there are more updates. This is not the end of today. Chapter 453. So, let's assume that these two groups or a few groups of people are fighting for personal vendettas. Li Qinglong said, then they know who each other is. But if there's no personal vendettas and they're just making use of each other, it's still acceptable. Imitating others may not be useless. So, this game is really complicated. We've caught so many people, but we still can't find the big fish. The other party's cautiousness has reached an outrageous level. Li Qinglong said, that's why I agree with Basua. Although the Southern Patriarch of the South is taking action in Shangjing and directly intervening in this matter, I'm afraid this matter will end without any result. Xiang Kuangren was a little impatient. He said, if so, what should we do? This won't work. That won't work. Do we have to just let it go? Forgive me for being blunt. Li Qinglong was now fully immersed in his role. He said, principles for now, it seems that it's just a few principles entanglement. At least on the surface, it can only be like this. But it's always involved in the game of position, interests, politics, and speaking rights. The matter of Principal Yi, Principal Shi, Vice Principal Xiang, and Vice Principal Liu of Hidden Dragon High School is very likely a game between the higher-ups, a process of competition and compromise. And the current situation is the result of the game. What is a game? Even if they use underhanded means to achieve their goals, it's still a game. Li Qinglong said calmly, politics doesn't care about the means. Everything is the process. It's not important. The only important thing is the result. But the tragedy of Vice Principal Cheng's family involved the royal family. It's different from before. Any change that involves the royal family will only be more complicated. Is it the big families who want the position of crown princess to consolidate their future faction? Or is it the other princes who are waiting for an opportunity to fish in troubled waters? Or is it the abandoned pawn after His Majesty directly revealed it? Or is it the internal strife of the crown prince's faction? For now, it's better to put these aside. We can't investigate. We can't investigate. We don't dare to investigate. The implications are too great. Once we find the right direction, it could lead to a disaster. If you go in the wrong direction and act rashly, you will be seeking your own death. Therefore, there are only a few things that we need to do right now. First of all, principal and vice principals, don't worry about these things for now. The most important thing was to nurse his body back to health. He didn't need to care about anything else. The most important thing is to recuperate your body and recover your cultivation, or even advance further. Otherwise, when the real target appears, it would be a joke if a hidden dragon martial artist was unable to fight against him. As for the second matter, Li Qinglong said confidently, you guys keep saying that you don't have a goal. In fact, how could he not have a goal? The target has been staying here all this time. Okay. Is the target obvious? Yi Changqing immediately stood up and looked at Li Qinglong with burning eyes. Li Qinglong also looked back and said strangely, the target. Isn't it obvious? When Xing Tian and Xiang Kuangren were also a little confused. Is it obvious? Of course it's obvious. Li Qinglong said strangely, When Vice Principal Xiang and the others got into trouble, those newly appointed vice principals were all targets. Aren't these ready-made targets obvious enough? You're talking about these targets. Yi Chongqing suddenly deflated and sighed. How can these people be so easily touched? Besides, there's no reason to touch them. Li Qinglong said strangely. What are you talking about, Principal Yi? What reason do you need to touch them? Do they need a reason to touch you? Do they have a good reason to kill you? Do they rely on a good reason to chase you away to make room for you? I've said it seriously just now. Whether it's a conspiracy or an overt scheme, it's also a process. It's not important. Only the result is important. Li Qinglong said, you should care about clearing your grievances and taking revenge. Why are you still so worried? The situation now is obvious. As long as you chase one away, the power behind this will show you who's behind this. If you don't get rid of the puppet on the surface, the mastermind behind this will never be exposed. You can only passively take a beating until you're killed, beaten to death. Li Qinglong said helplessly, this is such an obvious target. It's right in front of your eyes. Why are you still trying to reason with it? Sigh. Subconsciously, he and Zhou Xiaoduo looked at each other. Both of them felt a little speechless. They had already been bullied to this extent. Why were they still trying to reason with it? As long as they had doubts, it was enough. Worrying about this, and that would only make them passive. They would be passive to the end, and even passive to death. Well, I only asked you to chase them away, not to kill them. The Martial Hidden Dragon High School has been messed up by these people. Chase them away, and let the Martial Hidden Dragon High School regain its clarity. Isn't this reason enough? Li Qinglong said until here. When he saw Wen Xingtian give him a look, he immediately stopped talking. Yi Chongqing, Xiang Quangren, Vice Principal Liu, Vice Principal Cheng, and the others were all frowning and deep in thought. Xiang Quangren was exultant and eager to try. However, Yi Chongqing, Vice Principal Cheng, and Vice Principal Liu were all deep in thought. This matter. Let's discuss it again. Yi Chongqing sighed softly and said, it's not because you reminded us today that we thought of it. Such an obvious target. Of course we know. But there are things that a gentleman should do and not do. Once these people are taken action, the internal strife in the school will never be peaceful for a long time. Then is it still a school? An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, it's a good thing and very refreshing. But if we do that, what's the difference between us and them? Yi Chongqing sighed softly. But this is the Martial Hidden Dragon High School. This is a place to cultivate talents for the whole continent. It's not the martial world, nor is it a Vanity Fair. Maybe others can, but we can't. At least we can't do too much. Even if we really want to deal with them, we can't use methods that are too dark. Yi Chongqing waved his hand and stopped Xiang Quangren, who wanted to speak. He said, our core mission is to let the children become talents. We are not politicians who would resort to any means to get what they want. They can only look at the results and ignore the process, but we can't. The children are watching our every word and action. They're even imitating our words and actions. They're all learning from us. Our way of doing things, our character, our spirit, and our perseverance. Once we make a mistake, we may lead thousands of geniuses to make the same mistake. Once we are unscrupulous, we may bring out a group of unscrupulous students. Yi Chongqing sighed softly. I'm not pedantic, and it's not that I can't see the enemy, but I really can't. Vice Principal Cheng sneered and said, Yi Chongqing, let me ask you, even if Yi Chongqing dies because of this, and your family is destroyed because of this, you still can't? Yi Chongqing closed his eyes and pondered for a long time. Then he said seriously and cautiously, yes, I can't, because I'm a teacher, not a politician. What they think is unimportant, to me, is more important than a mountain. Yi Chongqing said word by word. Vice Principal Cheng looked at Yi Chongqing with a complicated expression. He was sad for his misfortune, angry for his failure to fight, but also sincerely admired him. I'm a teacher, not a politician. These words made people tremble in fear. but they also felt endless bitterness. Ever since the Hidden Dragon High School came into existence, the students who graduated from the Hidden Dragon High School had always been on the battlefield and in various fields. Every year, countless people were killed on the battlefield. Every year, countless people achieved great things. However, it was extremely rare for a black sheep to appear. There are only Hidden Dragon students who die in battle. There are no Hidden Dragon graduates. Upright and upright, dignified and dignified, mighty and domineering, indomitable spirit. Perhaps it was this spirit that supported this school. It was also the reason why the Hidden Dragon High School could always be ranked among the 3 great high schools. It was the true soul of the Hidden Dragon High School. However, in today's materialistic world, in an environment where people were fighting for power and profit, this kind of perseverance was laughable and disadvantageous. But this was a spirit. It could not be loosened. Once this perseverance was lost, the Hidden Dragon High School might not be the Hidden Dragon High School anymore. But if this continued for a long time, they would gradually be pushed aside, dealt with, and suppressed. Would the Hidden Dragon High School still be the original Hidden Dragon High School? Setting an example, lingering at death's door and delaying death. Was it really more important than an extreme counterattack and overturning the world? Vice Principal Chung could not figure this out. Big Brother Yi. Vice Principal Chung bowed respectfully, stood up straight, and said, "You have your perseverance, but I also have my hatred. I'll take my leave now. I admire your perseverance, and I respect it. But I can't forget my hatred, and I can't let it go." Vice Principal Chung chuckled, "Goodbye." His body flashed and disappeared from the secret room like a ghost. He actually did not give Yi Changqing a chance to speak again. Old 6. Yi Changqing had just called out, but Vice Principal Chung had already disappeared without a trace. Xiang Quangren was stunned for a moment and murmured, "Big brother, your perseverance now. Is it still useful? That's lingering at death's door. A slow suicide, dragging everyone to commit suicide and be buried with you." Vice Principal Liu sat in the wheelchair and said calmly, "Brother Quangren, there are some things that must be done by someone. If we all go and take revenge, what about the students? What about the Hidden Dragon?" Vice Principal Liu's white hair fluttered, but he smiled calmly and said, "This perseverance is the foundation of the Hidden Dragon, and this is the soul of the Hidden Dragon. I've always believed that we won't do it in vain. Such underhanded means are destined to not last long. There will be a day when the sun rises. It's just that we need to wait. But this perseverance is necessary. We can teach unscrupulous students, and we can also teach upright students. But what we teach is not students, but the future of this continent. What we preserve is not our pedantry, but the righteousness of this world. It must be passed down." Xiang Quangren smiled bitterly. In today's society, does anyone still understand us? Does anyone still acknowledge us? If no one understands, then we'll do nothing? Vice Principal Liu said faintly, "If no one understands, then we must be like those people and abandon our principles? To seek personal gain, to scheme against others, to achieve their goals by any means necessary? If even we do that, then how much strength of character can be preserved in this world? How much righteousness can be left?" Vice Principal Liu smiled calmly. "I'm tired. I'm going back to rest. But I'll always support Big Brother Yi." Set a heart for the world. Set a life for the people. Inherit the lost knowledge for the past saints, and establish peace for all ages. These words may be a little exaggerated, but we're doing it. This is the only way. Big Brother Yi is right. We're teachers, not politicians. This is the profession of a teacher in my heart. Writing, the 4th update will be released soon. Chapter 454. Until Zhuo Xiaoduo and Li Qinglong returned to the villa, they were still shocked to the core. From the bottom of their hearts, the two of them did not agree with Principal Ye's persistence. However, it did not affect their deep respect for this kind of persistence. To put themselves in their shoes, the two of them were students. If they saw their own teachers scheming against each other, fighting for power and profit, doing whatever it took to achieve their goals, putting aside the question of whether they would imitate their actions as a student, would they respect such a teacher? Perhaps some teachers were very pedantic. They knew nothing other than teaching students. They had no other skills other than making their students successful. They would be bullied everywhere in life. However, would you despise such a teacher? In that case, what kind of teacher was the one who touched your soul and left behind a monument in your life? Perhaps sometimes you would not agree. You might even feel that it was too stupid and not worth it. However, this would not affect the fact that he left a shining mark in your heart. It would not affect the fact that when you encountered something in your life in the future, when the word teacher was mentioned, you would say, I once had such a teacher. Whenever you mentioned him, even if you were saying that he was stupid, it would not affect the pride in your tone. It was pride. It was approval. The two of them did not speak for the whole night. They both felt that their hearts were touched, but they clearly did not agree. This kind of contradictory respect had always existed. I don't want to think about it anymore. Zhuo sighed and said, Anyway, I am destined not to be such a righteous person in my life. Li Qinglong said leisurely, Me too. However, I still respect Principal Yi and the rest. Me too. However, this does not prevent me from scolding them for being pedantic and infuriating, Zhuo said. Me too. Li Qinglong sighed. However, what we said today may not be useless. Since we put the target in front of them again and again, even if they disdain to scheme, but the invisible contempt is also a kind of rejection. Principal Yi only said that we can't use the same despicable methods, but he didn't say that we won't deal with them at all. Of course, a gentleman can be deceived, but even a Buddha can be enraged. Zhuo sighed. I hope it works. Zhuo felt that he could intervene in some of the school's higher-ups' affairs, but he couldn't influence Principal Yi and the others too much. Moreover, with his current strength, intervening too much would only cost him his life. Zhuo was aware of his own limitations. Even if they wanted to help out a little, they would have to make sure that it was safe again and again before they dared to do anything. It's swollen. What we need to do now is to grow slowly. Don't be too reckless. It's good that you're the sect leader. You're popular, but you won't attract the attention of those higher-ups. Zhuo patted Li Qinglong's shoulder. You were a little reckless tonight. Those inferences. Thousands of clues, you just made them. Reckless. It's really reckless. Li Qinglong chuckled. You said it as if you weren't reckless when you dragged the royal family into it. You were reckless. I was just following your words. How dare you criticize me? As they spoke, the two looked at each other and sighed in unison. There was a faint sense of regret in their hearts. The limelight was too great. We must be cautious in the future. Let's not be reckless. Let's remind each other. Let's stop each other. Of course, of course. Of course, of course. Determined. Our lives are more important. Yes. The two of them high-fived and made an oath, setting a long-term strategic plan for development. Let's concentrate on training. In the future, there should be nothing for us to do, Li Qinglong said in a relaxed manner. Shut up, Zhuo roared angrily. Don't say such things. This is a flag. Li Qinglong covered his mouth. Xiang Kuangren, Principal Liu, and Vice Principal Cheng had all left. Only when Xingtian remained in the secret chamber, leaning against the corner of the wall. Under the illumination of the light, his face was half lit and half dark. Principal, did you mean what you said just now? When Xingtian finally spoke when he saw that everyone else had left. You're not even calling me boss anymore? Yi Chanqing frowned. You're just a teacher. I'm also a teacher. I'm asking this from the standpoint of a teacher. When Xingtian said indifferently, even if we take a step back, to actually start a gang in the school and act like a boss, that's not what a teacher should do. Yi Chanqing took a deep breath. Then let's use the way teachers communicate with each other. What I said just now was from the bottom of my heart. Think about it, if we use the same methods to retaliate. No matter what the result of the conflict is, Hidden Dragon Academy will definitely be destroyed in our hands. It's not that we can't deal with them, but we can't use despicable methods to deal with them. Xingtian, Hidden Dragon Academy is the holy land of martial arts in the entire continent. Countless seniors have sacrificed everything to build it. We didn't come here to destroy it. Xingtian, if such a place is really destroyed in our hands, we'll be sinners for all eternity. Our sins are even greater than those people's. Yi Changqing sighed softly, when Xingtian's eyes suddenly shone with an unusual light. This light seemed to illuminate this long night, sweeping away all the haze. But he didn't say anything, only nodded. He casually threw out a Zhao's spatial ring and said, "This is a gift from Zhuoxiaoduo. As the principal, it's not too much for you to accept a little bit of a student's goodwill." "I'm going back to sleep." When Xingtian turned his head and left, if someone saw, they would definitely feel that when Xingtian's footsteps were unusually relaxed, as if he had let go of something, but also as if he had made up his mind about something. Yi Changqing smiled faintly and murmured, "If it was someone else who gave it to me, there's a 99% chance that I wouldn't accept it. But if it's from that little monkey, I'll accept anything. This principal has accepted a bribe today, so what?" As he spoke, he picked up the spatial ring and sent his divine sense into it. With one look, with a poof, Principal Yi sat down on the chair, his image completely gone. His face instantly flushed red, and even his body began to tremble. It was obvious that he was extremely agitated and couldn't control himself. "I was too careless just now. I spoke too confidently. This gift is really too valuable. I don't dare to accept it. I don't dare to accept it." Yi Changqing looked at the items in the spatial ring, speechless for a long time. Inside, there were 2,000 pieces of supreme gray jade of astral souls neatly stacked. Along with the divine sense, the rich spiritual energy gushed out. Yi Changqing only took a breath, and he felt that the symptoms of his heart pulse were alleviated by a lot. So many supreme gray jade of astral souls, priceless is not enough to describe it. Yi Changqing grabbed the spatial ring and chased out, intending to find Wen Xingtian and ask him what had happened. The gift was too valuable. Unexpectedly, as soon as he went out, he saw a piece of paper pasted on the opposite wall. It was Wen Xingtian's handwriting. "Don't be pretentious." Only these 3 words were written in a flamboyant style. Yi Changqing could not help but let out a bitter laugh. This fellow really saw through me. If I send it back, the other side will definitely reject it. This gift is indeed what my body needs the most. In the end, I still have to accept it. Just like what Xingtian said, I'm being pretentious. I'm being pretentious. Sigh. Yi Changqing. Oh, Yi Changqing, the children are sincere to you and have given you such a huge amount of wealth. If you still slack off and can't teach these students well, how can you face the world? How can you face your own spiritual interrogation? Yi Changqing returned to his own villa in a flash. Since he had the resources, his body and cultivation could return to its peak state, that some things would also give him confidence. In the end, this world was still a world where martial arts were respected. As long as your martial arts had reached a certain level, you would have the right to speak. But the next morning, when the entire class walked into the classroom with heavy hearts, they were surprised to see 2 people sitting in their respective seats. Xiang Chong, Xiang Bing. Seeing that the 2 of them had returned unscathed, there was a sudden burst of cheers. All the students rushed over while screaming. A few girls were so excited that tears streamed down their faces. "You're fine." Meng Zhongjun, Hao Han, and the others were so excited that their faces were red. "That's great, that's great." Xiang Chong and Xiang Bing obviously did not expect everyone to be so enthusiastic. Naturally, they were touched. They spoke one by one as if they were reuniting after a long time. They felt the waves of affection in their hearts churning endlessly. In the midst of the hubbub, Zhuoxiaoduo walked into the classroom with a sullen face. He looked around and walked to the podium with a sullen face. He picked up the pointer and hit the whiteboard a few times. "Pa pa pa! Silence!" Zhuoxiaoduo was still sullen as he scolded in a deep voice. "Class monitors what?" Xiang Chong's face was full of excitement. "What are you shouting for? Everyone sit down. Go back to your positions." On the podium, Zwishaoduo was full of vigor as he spoke sternly. All of you have made a mess in the classroom. What do you think you're doing? Are you high school students? Or are you idle people in society? Hooligans? Zwishaoduo said sternly. All of you, sit properly. Don't you understand human language? In the face of such pressure, all the students in the class went back to their positions, not daring to make a sound. After this round of training, the students who were shocked by Zwishaoduo's explosive gains had a deeper respect for class monitor Zwa. In a sense, they were more afraid of Zwishaoduo than of Xingtian. Everyone watched as Zwishaoduo walked back and forth on the podium with a sullen face like the weather before a storm. His face was full of righteousness. Looking for monthly votes, looking for subscriptions, looking for recommendation votes. Finish today's update. Chapter 455. Bam! A pointer was slammed onto the table, breaking into pieces. What are you doing? Are you all excited? What are you so excited about? Did you take medicine or not? Did you take the wrong medicine? Did you take fake medicine? Zwishaoduo's face darkened. What's the matter? Why are you so happy? Look at what you're saying. Nothing happened to you. That's great. You're still alive. That's great. Hee. What's so great about it? With your qualities, even if nothing happened today, something will definitely happen in the future. With your calmness, with your experience, saying that your flowers in a greenhouse is like slaughtering ducks at the southern heavenly gate. You're all overpaid. Zwishaoduo sneered. You've learned martial arts and practiced martial arts, but you're just pigs to be slaughtered by others. Don't be unconvinced. Report it one by one. Who has killed before? Who has walked the streets? Who has wandered the Jianghu? How many times have you been robbed? How many badger games have you been schemed against? Do you think that you're practicing martial arts just because you're practicing martial arts here and sparring with your classmates? Let me tell you, this is called bullshit training. What you're practicing is not martial arts. It's all for the enemy, to gain merit. Each and every one of you knows nothing about your temperament, state of mind, experience, society, the Jianghu, the battlefield, killing. You're all idiots who can't tell the difference. You're shameless enough to call yourselves geniuses after a competition and enter the higher martial arts. I don't even have to say that. Zwishaoduo said disdainfully. Let's not talk about other things. Just look at you now. Let's not talk about me. If I put all 34 of you together in a big mountain with Li Qinglong, both sides will fight to the death. In the end, Li Qinglong will definitely drag all 34 of your corpses out. What's the point of being so arrogant? When we go out for training, we give you credits. Is that just giving credits? All of you are just happily snatching credits? Have you thought of anything else? Looking at how busy you are, I can tell you responsibly that you haven't. You never thought about it. What happened to Xiang Chong and Xiang Bing? They didn't die or stink this time. What did they rely on? It was luck. If there's a next time, let's see if you'll die or not. Zwishaoduo clasped his hands behind his back, looking gloomy and imposing. Pai Bao asked from behind, Class Monitor Zwa, if we were with the Vice Class Monitor, he could pull out 34 corpses. What if you were with him? Zwishaoduo snorted and said, I can drag out 35 Li Qinglong. Is there anyone who doesn't agree? Li Qinglong shouted from below. The class monitor is right. As soon as he said this, the atmosphere suddenly became strange. Originally, she felt heavy, depressed, angry, and ashamed, but after Li Qinglong's words, why did she feel strange? She couldn't get angry anymore, and she couldn't laugh even if she wanted to. When Xingtian, who had been standing outside the door for a while, also smiled. The two of them, one with a white face and one with a red face, cooperated well. One of them was able to suppress people's emotions to the breaking point, while the other was able to liven up the atmosphere at the right time, sharing some of the pressure, but making the pressure last forever. He coughed and walked in. With a wave of his hand, Zwishaoduo returned to his seat dejectedly. His gloomy face turned bright and sunny. When he returned to his seat, he said loudly, Also, if you did as I said and benefited from the fortune-telling, hurry up and hand over the fortune-telling fee. Everyone in the class was speechless. You scolded us so badly that we were worthless, and then you turned around and said that you did a good job and even asked for money. Did you mean that we were nothing? If you didn't tell us our fortunes, we would have been crippled. More than 30 pairs of eyes rolled at once. Class monitor's was right. There's nothing wrong with what he said. When Xingtian didn't waste any time and said, so in the next period of time, we will start a new system. The class will be divided into 2 groups. Except for Zhou Xiaoduo and Li Qinglong, the other 34 people must live on campus. Each group of 17 people will attack at random times every night. You can use any means as long as it doesn't harm people's lives. It could be sleeping gas, poison, or hidden weapons. When Xingtian said indifferently, this group can attack the other group, or the other group can attack this group. Of course, there's a third group. Zhou Xiaoduo and Li Qinglong will be an independent group. They can attack any one of you at any time, or even both of you. Now that the credits will be given out soon, everyone can be considered rich. The loser has to give a credit to the winner. Well, after each attack, there will be a credit transaction. Either you give it to others, or others give it to you. If you lose 5 credits in a row, you will take the initiative to accept the punishment. Except for the female students who won't let you do it. The rest of the students' underwear and socks will be washed by you for 5 consecutive days. The washing time will be limited to every meal in the canteen. Take it to the faucet downstairs to wash it. This will make it easier for everyone to admire. When Xingtian's words caused a wave of grief. Don't think that it's a group punishment. Even if you're in a group, it's still an individual reward and punishment. When Xingtian said indifferently, think about how to divide it. Also, everyone needs to have a good rest. If anyone feels tired or listless during a battle in class, just think about what to do. Next, all of you get out of here and fight. For the next few days, the school administration office was still counting the number of rewards gained from this experience. On the other hand, they were preparing for the commendation ceremony. In just a few days, the students of the first class were already suffering. Every night, they were attacked more than once. How the hell were they going to have a good rest? The next day, they still had to practice martial arts and be energetic. They witnessed the 2 groups tormenting each other with their own eyes. All kinds of sneaky methods emerged one after another. When Xingtian let him be, completely ignoring him. Zhou Xiaoduo and Li Qinglong weren't allowed to interfere in the first week. Before everyone got used to this kind of living environment, the 2 of them would be considered as bullying and wouldn't be able to achieve the effect of training. Of course, Li Qinglong would still practice with Xiang Bing during the day. He would beat her until her face was swollen beyond recognition. On this day, Xiang Bing came to Zhou Xiaoduo with a swollen face. She said angrily, "Class monitor Zhou, why didn't you think of leaving one for me?" It turned out that this abnormally insensitive girl finally found the white tiger that Jin Piao and Yu Yin are carried every day. She was instantly infatuated. When she heard that it was bought from Zhou Xiaoduo, she immediately came to question him. "Leave it for you? Why would I leave it for you? Why should I leave it for you? Give me a reason first." Zhou Xiaoduo rolled his eyes. "You were already being dragged away to make bacon at that time, and you're still thinking about this? Get out of here. Do you think Li Qinglong is the only one who doesn't know how to be gentle with girls?" Xiang Bing was embarrassed by the scolding. She covered her face and left. However, she turned her embarrassment into a strong motivation and started to practice even more desperately. "When I'm strong enough, I'll beat this guy to death with his nasty words." In the past few days, Zhou Xiaoduo went to Grandma Shi's house for dinner twice. He did not know if it was an illusion or something, but Zhou Xiaoduo felt that Grandma Shi's attitude seemed to have changed. Her face was still as haggard as before, but Zhou Xiaoduo could clearly feel that Grandma Shi was more lively than before. Speaking of lunch, he had only eaten 2 lunches in the school during this period of time. However, both times, he was met with people fighting over his table. First, the 2nd grade class 6 sent out a representative to take revenge, but he was easily defeated by Zhou Xiaoduo. Then, the class monitor of the 6th grade went out to fight, but he was still sent flying by Zhou Xiaoduo with a kick. As such, If the flames of war were not extinguished, it would continue to spread to the second grade Class 5. Zhuo Xiaoduo's reputation in the Hidden Dragon High School also rose along with the tide and became more and more famous. Originally, calling him Sword King was just a joke. However, now, when Zhuo Xiaoduo walked into school and met other students of the same grade, they would call him Class Monitor Zhuo or Sword King. There was a lot of respect in their voices. The strong should be respected. Moreover, he would be respected more and more in the future, as long as he could continue to remain undefeated and maintain this record of constant victories. Every student who had advanced to the high martial school was once a genius. Their minds were bright and their eyes bright. No matter where they went in the future, they would be seniors and leaders. Once they encountered any danger or difficulty, all the students would be the ones to look out for and help each other. However, if the soul of the school spoke, it would definitely be more effective than 100 words from other students. Who would be so stupid as to deliberately provoke the strong? Wasn't that just asking for trouble and seeking death? Perhaps it was because of this understanding, more and more of the younger generation of the Gao and Wu families began to come to Zhuo Xiaoduo to ease their relationship and make friends. Everyone's attitude became more relaxed and more sincere. After all, the family had already made the decision to no longer be enemies with Zhuo Xiaoduo. They couldn't go against the family's decision, right? Since they were no longer enemies, who wouldn't know how to make friends? Wasn't it just showing sincerity and kindness? More friends meant more options. As for that dead Wu Yuntian, even when he was alive, he wasn't very likable. Now that he was dead, who would still remember him? If it wasn't for the fact that he was a direct descendant of the family head, they wouldn't even want to mention his name. And during this period of time, another clan began to gradually surface. The Li family. That was the family that teacher Li Qingxiu came from. This family was finally dug out. It turned out that Li Qingxiu's family belonged to a branch of the Li family in Fenghai City. However, for some unknown reason, after Li Qingxiu became disabled, he and his brother's branch actually returned to the Li family. This also meant that the Li family had also taken responsibility for this matter. There is no right or wrong in the life and death arena. This matter is over. The Li family spokesperson's attitude was very firm. However, when the younger generation of the Gao and Wu families heard this, they almost exploded in anger. The Li family said it so easily. There was no right or wrong. Was there no reason? Chapter 456. In the hearts of the Wu and Gao families' youngsters, they were of course thinking about a different matter. If they were to trace it back to the source, it was because of Li Qingxiu that the life and death arena happened. If it wasn't for the Li family's lack of morals, how could things have developed to this point? Now, with just one sentence, you actually want to just let it go. Fuck. Where did you get your face from? No matter if it was the Wu family's youngsters who usually didn't get along with Wu Yuntian, they all acted as if they had eaten gunpowder. As long as they saw the Li family in school, they would begin to mock and ridicule them. Then, the Gao family also followed suit. The current situation of these three families was very strange. Today, the Wu and Gao families were fighting the Li family. Tomorrow, the Li and Wu families were fighting the Gao family. The day after, the Gao and Li families were fighting the Wu family, that the three sides were fighting in a chaotic manner, causing the entire Hidden Dragon High School to be in a foul mood. It seemed that the three families were very stupid. The teachers didn't have any opinions about this and completely ignored it. They were happy to see it happen. No matter who was fighting who, in the end, it would be a real fight. The improvement of the students was obvious. Moreover, this should be a tacit strategy of the three families. They were using the energetic and easily provoked characteristics of the younger generation to create some conflict and hatred. Let's fight in school. In any case, no one would die. Moreover, they would all fight for real. Like this, one by one, they would naturally become experts in actual combat. This is the best way to train soldiers. As for those who suspected the Lee family of being irresponsible and offending the other two families with a casual sentence, that those people didn't have brains. These kinds of brainless people didn't understand anything. If they died, they deserved it. There was no need to pay attention to them. As the three families fought, more and more people from the second, third, and fourth years were involved. At the same time, the teachers in charge of each class began to encourage their own students to snatch the tables of other classes. Last year, the class I was in charge of had its table snatched by teacher Xiang Tianxiao's students. I didn't manage to snatch it back. I'm so sorry, so sorry. There was no need to say anything more. With just this sentence, the students went up. Compared to previous years, this year's Hidden Dragon High School entered a chaotic world ahead of time. On the other hand, Zhou Xiaoduo and Li Qinglong were monitoring the phone calls and were busy with the internet company. That rank 1 firmament realm manager is a talent. If this person is used well, he will have a great effect. Li Qinglong reminded Zhou Xiaoduo more than once. However, Zhou Xiaoduo could do nothing about it. How could I not know that he was a talent? Do I need you to remind me? But the problem now is that he is doing well in Heaven's first grade. How am I supposed to poach him? More importantly, he has the authority of a rank 1 in the firmament realm. He can give out a few 100 million star coins just like that. He can even give out a few 100,000 high-grade astral souls jades without even blinking. What better conditions can I give him? I really can't give you anything. Looking at the situation now, at least he can't continue in Heaven's first grade, where he is kicked out. Only then can we have a chance to poach him. Zhou Xiaoduo looked melancholy. I remember reading a book called Water Margin. There is a person called Song Jiang in the book. He is really good at poaching people. He caused your family to be ruined, and you have no choice but to fight with him. The most amazing thing is that he tricked the officials into rebelling with him. Now we finally have a rich and generous investor. Rich and overbearing here could only be regarded as an inappropriate metaphor, because this patron was simply too rich to the extreme. In addition to buying 90% of the company's shares at a premium, he also offered a salary that was twice as high as before and kept all the employees. Just as everyone was rubbing their hands and preparing for a big fight, the new boss announced a new strategic goal. Our company's goal is very simple and crude. We are determined to become the #1 troll on the internet. Listen to this. Is this what a normal person is saying? This is nonsense, isn't it? We used to be a legitimate company. How could we do something so despicable? This is wrong. This is not a joke. Our company's goal in the future is to eliminate trolls on the internet. The most direct way to achieve this goal is to be a troll ourselves, the strongest and sharpest troll. Now, for all the trolling subsidiaries, buy all those that can be bought, and get rid of all those that can't be bought. Get rid of all the individual trolls. I will give you a budget of 100 million yuan. There are no other requirements, just one. Within a month, we have to become the #1 troll company on the internet. No matter what the topic is, we have to go in whichever direction we want to go. The original boss was called Gu Qi. He smiled bitterly. Boss, 100 million yuan is not enough to achieve that. Don't you understand? 100 million yuan. The first budget is only used to build the framework. It's not like I'm asking you to reach the top in one step. Li Qinglong was rich and overbearing. He directly said, but if you can't even build the framework in a month, all of you can get lost. I understand. Gu Qi's heart was filled with sorrow. I was recognized as a genius in the Film and Television Academy. I was also very ambitious back then. Who would have thought that I would become the spokesperson of a trolling subsidiary today? However, I don't have money on me, and I can't speak tough. A family still needs to eat. Especially when the new boss said, during the recruitment process, if you meet any troublemakers or people who take the money but don't do anything, give me a list of names and addresses. I guarantee that you won't stay overnight. The deterrence of this sentence was unprecedented. It was horrifying and sent chills down everyone's spine. For this group of ordinary people who were powerless, it felt like they had entered the underworld. No, the underworld might not have such a frightening deterrent force. This was a real investment from a high-ranking martial artist. Mommy, this is clearly cutting off our path of betrayal. After the meeting, Gu Qi was confused. He looked at the technical director, then at his old buddies, and realized that everyone was dumbfounded. The budget of 100 million had already been transferred to his account. However, is this money worth spending? After spending this money, we have to work hard. Otherwise, fuck, I don't dare to think about it anymore. Can you find the address? Cough, the address is very clear. It's from the Dao League mainland Sanqing Hall. The technical director coughed. Even an ordinary person would know what kind of place the Dao League mainland Sanqing Hall was. What the fuck? These few words directly shattered all of Gu Qi's other thoughts. This address was definitely fake. There was no doubt about it. However, could it be an ordinary person who dared to use this address as a cover? The other party's methods are very advanced. At least, they're at the top of the world. We can't track them at all. Then, are we still going to do this? Yes or no? Gu Qi smiled bitterly. Can we not do it? Let's quickly change the name and start work tomorrow. From tomorrow onwards, we'll be a group of trolls. Professional trolls. The most professional trolls. Sigh. Gu Qi sighed sadly. On the second day, everything was settled. What made Gu Qi and the others feel strange was that no one had registered the name Zhuo Shuai. The registration was completed in the blink of an eye. It was so smooth that he could not believe it. Every time he came up with a name for the company, he had to prepare more than 10 names. It was either this name or that name was taken. However, he did not know that the name Zhuo Shuai was immediately sent out to a rather special channel after the registration was completed. Even the person in charge of registration did not know about this. That morning, Zhuo Changlu received a call. Then for the first time, he called his son. Hey, you haven't been doing anything these days, right? Your mom said that she dreamed of you yesterday. Zhuo Xiaoduo said respectfully, I didn't do anything. Dad, don't worry. I'm fine here. I'm obedient like a cute by rabbit. Zhuo Changlu's first reaction was to smash the phone. You're as obedient as a by rabbit? I want to beat you to death. You cute by rabbit? Chapter 457. Zhuo Changlu spent a lot of effort to calm himself down. His longing for his son, whom he had not seen for a long time, was blown away by this sentence. Just stay outside and don't come back. That little bastard. Nobody knew him better than his father. Zhuo Changlu would feel that it was a miracle if this kid could behave for even an hour. How could he be such an adorable bunny? You lied to me. Don't you know who I am? Well, it's good that you're fine. Remember to practice martial arts well. Don't worry about your family. Your mother and I have moved to King Qi's tomb. Remember to call us when you come back, or you won't be able to find us, Zhuo Changlu said kindly. Got it, Dad? Okay, it's okay. A lot of people have been scolding us on the internet these days. We thought you got into some trouble. Scolding you? Damn, who's so bold? Zhuo Xiaoduo was furious. Dad, tell me, what's their ID and what they're saying? I just started a company that specializes in this. I'll scold them to death. Zhuo Zhonglu's face twitched as he said, It's just a small matter. Look at how anxious you are. How many times have I told you to be steady and calm? You're too weak in terms of mental cultivation. Zhuo Xiaoduo did not let it go. I can't stand people scolding my dad. It's so rebellious. Zhuo Changlu comforted him and then hung up the phone. He pinched his eyebrows and made another call. Hey, it's because of the little doggy. Oh, well done. Ha. It's okay. Wu Yuding's outstretched hand fell. She looked at Zhuo Changlu angrily. I reached out my hand for a long time just to talk to my son, and you hung up the phone? Zhuo Changlu was dumbfounded. He did not see it just now. Wu Yuding was not beside him when he called. You didn't even pick up the phone when you asked me to. You didn't even mention me when you called your son. Wu Yuding's eyes were red. Zhuo Changlu, I can't live with you anymore. Zhuo Changlu, what do you mean? Wu Yuding said aggressively. Xiao Duo clearly wanted to talk to me. Changlu finally found an excuse and hurriedly explained. Xiao Duo didn't even ask about you on the phone. When did he want to talk to you? That's why I didn't think. Wu Yuding almost choked to death. She looked at Changlu angrily and said, sleep on the sofa tonight. He turned around and left. Changlu was dumbfounded. What about me? What's wrong with me? The matter of Shuai's company came to an end. Then Gu Qi and the others realized that everything related to Shui Film and Entertainment Media Limited was unbelievably smooth. It was as if God was helping them. They went through all the procedures as fast as lightning. Although they were all normal procedures, the basic process still needed some time. There was a rhythm to it. Other people might not even get a number after waiting for 7 or 8 days. However, when they went there, they often met people who were in a good mood. Hey you, what's up? Oh, okay, I'm in a good mood today. Come, I'll do it for you. Hey you, are you that person? Why are you today? Oh, it's just a matter of saying one sentence. Come. Hey you, why are you here? Oh, I thought it was fate that I met you yesterday. Today you came to my base camp. Okay, I'll do it together. Such coincidences made Gu Qi feel that the world was full of love. It turned out that the reason why his company was not successful was probably because he did not choose a good name. Things were going very smoothly. Even the company's recruitment was going very smoothly. He did not know why, but it seemed to have appeared out of thin air. There were many talented students who were exceptionally suited for the position, and they came from all over the place to recommend themselves. That originally, most of the company had gone bankrupt and left. Now, there were only about 10 people left. This time, after the recruitment notice was posted, it was filled with people in just one morning. Moreover, all of the people who came were awesome and were really capable. After Gu Qi told them about the company's new idea, everyone fell into a temporary state of silence. Of course, he could not tell them about the company's trolls. Boss, what you mean is to control the direction of public opinion on the internet. I can't say this too clearly, but I can only point it out vaguely. Then in the afternoon, more than half of the people resigned. Gu Qi nodded to himself. That's more like it. So many capable people are trapped here. I feel bad about it too. What am I thinking? They left, but I'm actually happy. This is despicable. What kind of mentality am I in? Then, before Gu Qi could adjust his state of mind, another large group of people rushed in. And these people were all professionals. Each and every one of them was an experienced troll. Any one of them was a famous and ruthless character in the trolling industry. They had been in the industry for many years, experienced hundreds of battles, and each of them had their own team that this time they swarmed in. And each of them spoke eloquently and with reason. It's too tiring to fight on our own. It's too easy to break a chopstick. Why don't we form a team to keep each other warm? If there's anything, we can work together and remind each other not to step on the line. One day and one night. Take note, it was only one day and one night. The number of people working in Shui Film and Entertainment Media Limited had already exceeded 500, and they were all elites in the industry. Many of them were experienced trolls who were well known but had never met before. They were the kind of people who could make people like Gu Qi change their expressions when they heard about them. At this moment, there were many talents gathered under their command. It was humble to say that it was a gathering of heroes. It was basically a gathering of heroes. Who could compete with them? Xiaoduo and Li Qinglong woke up after a day of school. After returning home, they asked tentatively, "How's it going?" The response they received made Xiaoduo and Li Qinglong's jaws drop. In one night, the company was strong and powerful. A company with strong capabilities and would fight wherever they wanted was established in such a swift and decisive manner. Moreover, it was an individual's company. Moreover, there were countless companies, individuals, and VIPs associated with it. Everyone was preparing their troops, and their morale was high. They were just waiting for the new boss to give the order. Fuck. Xiaoduo could not figure it out. Could it be that being a troll now is so attractive? Will the 3 mountains and 5 peaks unify the Jianghu in an instant? Zhuoxiao Duo clicked his tongue in wonder. The economic situation now is not good. Maybe everyone is having a hard time. Our company has nothing but funds. Li Qinglong sighed and said, "The only thing I'm worried about now is that if we start this, we'll have to spend money like water. We'll have to keep throwing money into it. Isn't the point of earning money to throw it away?" Zhuoxiao did not care. Isn't it just spending money? What's the point of having money? I'm a rich man now. Even if I don't have enough money, I still have Fang Yinua. It's enough to support me for quite a while. Let's try issuing an order first. Zhuoxiao said, "Let's test the strength of these people. What should we issue then? Let's find out about the most respected teachers in the history of Hidden Dragon High School." Zhuoxiao said, "Let's use this as a topic and let them do it. I like to see how far they can go." Okay. Li Qinglong's fingers flew and immediately sent the order. The boss handed over the task. Gucci's face immediately became serious. Everyone knew that the new boss wanted to test the quality of the team. Whether they could be valued by the boss or not, the future of the company would depend on this one deal. Inform all the department heads for a meeting immediately. Our first task is here. The first high-level meeting of Zhuoxiao Entertainment Company Limited was very solemn. General Manager Gucci directly projected the basic requirements of the boss on the wall and let everyone express their opinions. Obviously, the boss wants to praise the Hidden Dragon High School. Someone said, "Is he really bragging or just bragging?" He definitely can't brag blindly. He has to brag with reason and evidence. Of course, he has to create a huge response. "Manager, this is a big job. In recent years, the reputation of Hidden Dragon High School is not that good." There were many knowledgeable people, and they quickly pointed out a common line of thought. We can start boasting from the glorious days of the past. Even if the situation in the past few years isn't too stable, the teachers of Hidden Dragon High School are all top-notch talents. Just the performance a few days ago is enough to boast for a long time. Since the establishment of Hidden Dragon High School, he has bragged all the way. What kind of glorious people came from Hidden Dragon High School? What kind of people came from which teacher? How many of them came from Hidden Dragon High School in the same year? Who else? How many of them have achieved something? How many died in battle? Why did they die in battle? How did they die? How did they die as heroes? Or, what contribution did they make? These are all explosive points. This is definitely a huge project, but the specific operation is traceable. It's not too difficult. Looks like everyone has a direction to work on. Let's start now. Gucci took a deep breath and said, "The first action is to give a brief introduction of Hidden Dragon High School, starting from the establishment of Hidden Dragon High School." The first article will be titled, "From here on, I will slowly and comprehensively bring you to understand Hidden Dragon High School." It must be noted that this is just the beginning of the legend, the beginning of the epic. The first group will take this job. I will give you 3 hours to prepare and plan. That should be enough, right? After that, the other groups can start to look for their own targets and communicate with each other in the work group. Do not repeat and waste manpower. Gucci made the final decision. If there are no more questions, let's start working. Everyone, let the bosses see our ability. Boss, don't worry. Chapter 458. Gucci realized that this group of new subordinates was actually more enthusiastic than him, the general manager. Moreover, it was not just a little bit more. It was almost several times more enthusiastic. Each of them was more enthusiastic than the other, as if they had been injected with chicken blood. As soon as he gave the order, they immediately began to work. All the keyboards in the entire office area were activated at the same time. It was as if hail was falling. It was lively. Everyone was focused and serious. They were so serious that it made people feel ashamed. They were indeed the elites of the industry. Gucci had no idea what kind of people he was leading now. He also had no idea why all of this was happening. All along, the internet had been a mess. Netizens were fighting for themselves. They said whatever they wanted without taking responsibility. There was no future trouble. The government might have mouthpieces, but it was difficult to form a huge force. When it came to guiding people's hearts and the direction of the wind, the more authoritative the organization was, the more difficult it was to do so, because the more the government's mouthpiece was, the more it made people feel inexplicably resistant, because there was a feeling, as if they were being preached. This feeling. Therefore, some well-known bloggers, VIPs, celebrities, and so on fought for themselves and earned their own money. Instead, it really affected many people. To guide the direction, one needed to write articles and attract people's attention. Then, with skillful and reasonable writing, one would completely lead people astray and lead them to the direction that the author had set. As long as the technique was used well, even black could be washed white. It would be spotless. White could also be dyed black. It could not be washed clean with water. It was not that the government did not want to control it, but it really could not. However, Zhuo's company now made people see an opportunity, or rather a direction. This was just a personal company, but it could do many things that many big forces and even the government could not do. Even if something happened, it would not affect the national level. However, this company could be used to do many things that the national power could not, and was inconvenient to do. Using the power of society to guide the people, the government could do what the government wanted without showing up at all. Moreover, the people of the country could be happy, thinking that the higher-ups had seen the voices of the netizens, but the most important thing was that this company had a very good foundation. With such a strong background, no one could find out, and it was difficult to shake that. Therefore, with the help of a small shao from the top, a behemoth quietly rose from the ground. Gucci was not the only one who did not know about this. None of the people below him knew about this either. Even Li Qinglong, who set up this company, was in the clouds. As for the initiator of all this, Zhuo, he could only be confused. He would not have even dreamed of it. How could he have known that he would be immediately used for a long time after jumping on a whim? And this was not the main point. He would be kept in the dark for a very, very long. And he had to play the role of a sucker who was willing to spend money. It was not easy for masters to be so willing to be a sucker. But this time, Zhuo didn't know why, but he did it willingly, excitedly, and joyfully. This was the first time such a strange thing had happened in the real world. The person in charge of initiating it was dumbfounded. The person in charge was confused. The person in charge of the company was confused. As for the real power, he did not expect it at all before it was launched. That everything was so coincidental. It was a lucky hit, and the strange thing was completed. Then, in a short period of time, it snowballed and expanded rapidly on the internet. It was almost too much for the eye to take in, and it turned into a torrent on the internet. From all directions, from all angles, and from all industries, people were involved. It formed the most barbaric and completely unreasonable rampage. In just one night, the popularity of martial arts hidden dragon soared on the internet. It was so red that it was purple, and so purple that it was black. Martial arts hidden dragon. Why is it martial arts hidden dragon? Do you know what a martial arts hidden dragon is? Martial arts hidden dragon. Why is it called martial arts hidden dragon? The martial arts hidden dragon of the past. More than a dozen broken houses. One of the 3 future martial arts masters. Martial arts hidden dragon. How did the seniors do it? When you were enjoying the glory, who knew the sorrow of martial arts hidden dragon? I would rather turn my body into powder in exchange for the bright sun of martial arts hidden dragon. Remember the first old principal who founded martial arts hidden dragon. This is a hero. Remember the 10 gentlemen of martial arts hidden dragon. Who still remembers him? The teacher who died of exhaustion in his teaching post. 3,000 years of martial arts hidden dragon. The number of students who died in battle is terrifying. You can't imagine. Burning my jade blood loyal heart in exchange for the spring of peach blossoms. Originally, Hidden Dragon High martial artist was quite famous, but now he was extremely popular. And the popularity of martial arts Hidden Dragon was the kind of popularity that made people admire it more the more they read. The related things that were circulating on the internet for thousands of years were all true, and all of them were traceable. No matter which one it was, there was irrefutable evidence. and all of them were real people with flesh and blood. There were countless material evidence, and even witnesses. Countless reporters under Zhuang's company went to all parts of the country, to all parts of the mainland, to Sun Moon Pass, to all borders, to interview. An even bigger wave was brewing, and a brand new internet giant was quietly formed. Just like that, the two instigators, Zhuo and Li Qinglong, were still muddle-headed and had inexplicably succeeded. They could be said to be the fastest to succeed in history, the most awesome, and the most muddle-headed two big bosses. And these two muddle-headed bosses happened to be the smartest and the most talented two people. It could even be said that in thousands of years, they were the only two people with the best brains. The twists and turns, the endless coincidences, and the pushing of the boat with the current were really hard to explain in a few words. At this moment, these two muddle-headed bugs were walking on the road to school, and they were beaming with joy, happy, and carefree, just like two cute white rabbits. Just last night, Li Qinglong successfully suppressed the third thorny road. Similarly, Zhuo's 12th thorny road was also successful. That night's mournful howls almost caused Yi Chongqing, who was nearby, to go berserk. If the tables are snatched again today, the ones who come will be second grade class 5, right? Li Qinglong said. Zhuo sighed. According to the rules, the one who took action yesterday was the chief of class 6. After that, it can only be someone stronger than the chief. These rules are really fucking rotten eggs. It's just like poking a hornet's nest. Obviously, it's just snatching a table from class 7, but now it's developing into a trend of challenging the entire grade. This matter really makes me regret it. Fighting every day, I'm clearly a civilized person, polite, gentle, and honest. Huh? Li Qinglong chuckled. This guy really has the face to say this. Even if others don't know you, how can I not know you? I don't admire you for anything else, but I admire the thickness of your skin. Today is the trial commendation conference, and also the day to give out credits. Zhuo had a look of longing. I don't know how many credits I'll have, but it should be enough for a while. Li Qinglong also had a look of longing. I'm ranked 2nd, so I should have a lot of credits. Zhuo was smug. Don't worry, we definitely won't be short. But 2 people probably won't be enough. Li Qinglong laughed gloatingly. Xiang Chong and Xiang Bing definitely won't be enough. Bing Dan is really unlucky. Ha ha ha, he gets beaten up every day and doesn't have enough credits. He owes money everywhere and embarrasses himself every day. Waha! In a happy mood, he actually composed a short poem, which actually rhymed quite well. Zhuo tilted his head and looked at the leader of the Iron God sect with a strange expression. For the first time, he felt that Li Qinglong's position as the leader wasn't a fluke. This was definitely hard power. At school, they were also having a meeting. Regarding the issue of freshmen's credits, there's a big problem. The dean of the academic affairs office smiled bitterly. In previous years, the first place basically only got 6,000 credits, and at most, they only got 7,000 to 8,000 credits for Astral Beasts, which should be enough. But this year, the second place Li Qinglong got more than 9,000 Astral Beasts, and the first place Zhuo got more than 45,000 credits. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This amount of credits is quite terrifying. According to our credit calculation, Zhuo can get more than 400,000 credits this time, and that's from a lower point. Isn't this a little too much? The dean of the academic affairs office really had a toothache. This number was too terrifying. After having it, one could almost do whatever one wanted in school. How could there be so many credits in previous years? Basically, each person would have thousands or tens of thousands of credits, but the most would not exceed 100,000 credits, which would be gone in a short time. But this year's freak, it was hard to describe in words. Not only did he earn a huge amount of credits, but he also plundered all the high-grade astral souls jade from the 9 big families that there was no one else who could do this kind of business. There's one more thing. The dean of the academic affairs office had a toothache. Many of the astral beasts handed in this time are in a state of malnutrition. I don't know what's going on. After we counted them individually, We found that these malnourished astral beasts. He coughed and said somewhat incredulously, the total number is exactly 45,678. That's the number of astral beasts handed in by the champions Washao duo. All the school's higher-ups looked at each other for a while, speechless for a long time. Although I don't know the reason, but why do these astral beasts, as long as they are in his hands, become malnourished and have congenital deficiencies? The dean of the Academic Affairs Office was puzzled. Chapter 459. When Xingtian and Yi Changqing spoke at the same time. Ahem, let's skip this matter. All right. Yi Changqing and Wen Xingtian looked at each other, speechless. Others might not know, but they were well aware of it. It was no longer a secret that Zhuo Xiaoduo possessed the Flaming Sun Sutra. Then, the reason why these 40,000 star beasts were malnourished and in poor condition was obvious. It was said that there was a very evil dagger in the south. Could it be that that thing had been passed as Xiaoduo? But not many people knew about this. Yi Changqing said, deal with these malnourished ones and get rid of them in the same batch. As for those in poor condition, sell them at half price. What's the big deal? Just deal with them as soon as possible. All right. As for Zhuo Xiao's credits, Zhuo Xiaoduo and Li Qinglong, how many credits should the third place get? As for the third place, Meng Zhongjun, he also has 9,100 star beasts, but most of them are of the embryonic breathing realm. Although he also has some inner core realm star beasts, they are very few in number. In the end, he can get 21,000 credits. Then let's do it this way. Li Qinglong, as the second place, will get 22,000 credits. Then what about Zhuo Xiaoduo? The academic affairs director could tell that they were not going to calculate according to the established standard. Instead, they were going to use a symbolic number. Although he did not know the reason, since the principal had said so, he had to give them this much. Zhuo Xiaoduo, as the first place, likes a straight number so much that he even sent us 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 star beasts. We can't favor one and discriminate against the other. Let's give him 22,222 credits and return him a leopard. Everyone will be happy together. All the higher-ups were speechless for a while. How was this calculated? The other party student had sent over 45,678 star beasts and should have given over 400,000 credits. In the end, the principal had directly sent over a leopard, which was worth 22,222 credits. Didn't this mean that the other students were all idiots? More importantly, his score was not even enough to get a fraction of what he was supposed to get. The number of star beasts offered by the other party was undoubtedly huge. Even if there were some flaws in the quality of the star beasts, after a 50% discount, it would still be more than 200,000 star beasts. Wasn't it a little too much to offer a little over 20,000 star beasts? But why? Could it be that Principal Yi was targeting him? But that's even more wrong. When Xingtian was also puzzled, he frowned and looked over. It's settled then. Yi Changqing made the final decision and did not explain further. When Xingtian suddenly stood up, Zhuo Xiaoduo and Li Qinglong's credits. As the teacher in charge, how could Wen Xingtian agree when he saw his own students suffer such a huge grievance? He had to fight for it. I'll tell you the reason why I'm doing this later. Yi Changqing sighed and transmitted his voice. When the two of them were alone, Yi Changqing looked at Wen Xingtian and frowned. The various actions of these two fellows really make me speechless. The nutrient solution in the nutrition cabin. These two fellows don't even find it disgusting. They just drink it after entering. They drink it every time. You still don't know about this, right? When Xingtian was horrified. Drink nutrient solution? There was such a thing? Fuck, there was actually such a thing, such people. But in retrospect, the teacher in charge of looking after the nutrition cabin would always mutter strangely that there would always be two machines that would inexplicably lose a lot of nutrient solution. That could it be? It's fine if these two fellows just drink it, but there's no trace of it, yet they still poured it out. Yi Changqing thought of what he had seen in the past 2 days and was furious. He was both angry and amused at the same time. They poured out so much of it and usually drank it like water at home. Can you blame me for settling the score with them? These two fellows don't even drink water at home. They only drink nutrient solution. Yi Changqing had a headache. When Xingtian, on the other hand, had a Spartan look on his face. He really didn't have the face to argue for it. Yi Changqing snorted. What's the point of having so many credits? It's not like they're all used up. I'm already magnanimous enough to reserve the champion's position for him. Those star beasts of his don't count at all. Let him continue to earn. If he does, I'll continue to deduct. If he drinks more nutrient solution, deduct more. 100 times more. All right. When Zhou Xiaoduo and Li Qinglong arrived at the school, they were called into Wen Xingtian's office. Wen Xingtian was speechless. Teacher Wen, what's the matter? Isn't today the commendation ceremony? Zhou Xiaoduo said excitedly. Commendation ceremony. When Xingtian looked at the two fellows who had a longing look on their faces and said sarcastically, the two of you still want to be commended? Zhou Xiaoduo immediately sensed that something was wrong. His heart skipped a beat, and he said, Teacher Wen, did Li Qinglong get into trouble again? Li Qinglong was speechless. How did I get into trouble again? You still have the cheek to say that. When Xingtian's face darkened, the two of you did it. The two of them were confused. Teacher Wen, Zhou Xiaoduo smiled cautiously in an ingratiating manner. Ever since Swollen and I entered the school, we've always been humble, kind, and honest, respectful to our teachers, united with our classmates, fought for justice, and fought against injustice. We're diligent, conscientious, and conscientious. We've never made any mistakes, nor did we break any laws. Shut up. When Xingtian snorted and suddenly asked, Is the nutrient solution good? Is it enough? It's okay. I don't dare to drink too much of that stuff, Zhou Xiaoduo said casually, then immediately covered his mouth. When Xingtian stood up, Stand properly. Then he pointed at them one by one. Drink it secretly. Drink it secretly. I'll let the two of you drink it secretly. One finger's with Xiaoduo staggered. One finger Li Qinglong staggered. Not only do you drink it secretly, but you also drink it and take it out. According to an insider, the two of you don't even drink water at home. You only drink this. You still want to be praised. What is there to praise the two of you for? When Xingtian pointed his finger at Zhou Xiaoduo and Li Qinglong, causing him to sway left and right. Both of them looked as if they had lost their souls. They regretted their past actions and were extremely dejected. Sure enough, something happened, but how did they find out? I didn't drink it when Teacher Wen was here. What's with the insider's news? Now, what else do you have to say? When Xingtian's eyes widened, looking at these two fellows who were so close to each other, he almost couldn't hold back the strange laughter in his heart. Actually, we only drank a little, Zhou Xiaoduo argued weakly. Yes, it really wasn't much, Li Qinglong whispered. Is that something for you to drink? When Xingtian roared. Cough. I thought it was quite clean at that time. I couldn't help it. Zhou Xiaoduo continued to resist stubbornly. Yes, it was really tempting. I won't do it again. Li Qinglong hung his head dejectedly. It was indeed quite delicious, but it tasted good. Tasted good? Are you addicted to it? Li Qinglong. Wen Xingtian was furious. After that, Zhou Xiaoduo didn't drink it much, but you, Li Qinglong, went in every day. You went in several times a day, and it was all turbid. But you always drank less every time. How much can you drink? Isn't it disgusting? Li Qinglong blinked his eyes and was speechless. Say it. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? When Xingtian pulled Li Qinglong's ear. I don't have any special thoughts. Swollen confessed dejectedly. I just feel that since I'm already so disgusted to drink, if I don't drink more, I'll be disgusted for nothing. It's already so dirty. Why should I be afraid of one more turbid? When Xingtian almost cursed out loud. What a strange way of thinking. There was such a saying? Since it was already disgusting, why not drink more? What the hell was one more turbid? Go back. Immediately. When Xingtian said angrily, This is too bad. Because of this, although I won't cancel your first and second place titles, I definitely won't give you too many credits. If there's a next time, I'll give you all 0 credits. Go away. Zhou Xiaoduo and Li Qinglong came out of Wen Xingtian's office with their faces covered in dirt. They looked at each other and sighed. Walking at night too often, we'll always bump into ghosts. Zwishaoduo walked a little further away and muttered in a low voice, "This is really a ghost. But how do we get exposed? Who is the informant?" Li Qinglong was dumbfounded. "I can't figure it out either. Every time Teacher Wen went, we hid pretty well. There were so many people using it at the same time. It's impossible that it was only us." "That's true. We must have been betrayed. But who betrayed us? There's a traitor among us?" "Yes." "All right. Teacher Wen just said that he didn't drink water at home." Zwishaoduo snorted. "This means that we were exposed at home. Did the informant come to our house?" Duh. Both of them were quick-witted. They deduced almost everything in an instant. Zwishaoduo gritted his teeth. "That old bastard. I gave him so many high-quality jade of astral souls, but he turned around and sold me out. He even deducted my credits. All my good stuff was fed to the dogs." Li Qinglong coughed. "That's the headmaster. He's heartless anyway." The more Zwishaoduo thought about it, the more he felt like he was at a loss. No, there must be a premeditated reason for deducting our credits. The so-called drinking of the energy fluid was just an excuse. Zwishaoduo gritted his teeth and said, "Even if this didn't happen, we still wouldn't be able to get so many credits. We can find any excuse. This group of old foxes, none of them are good." Yes. They're too insidious." Both of them discussed in low voices as they walked, gnashing their teeth. A person walked towards them. When he saw them, he was stunned. "Hello, headmaster." Zwishaoduo and Li Qinglong were dumbfounded. They almost peed on the spot. They turned around in a daze. Behind them, 2 meters away and 2 meters in the air, Yi Changqing and Wen Xingtian stood there quietly. Their 4 eyes were staring at them indifferently. Looking for monthly tickets, recommendation tickets, and subscriptions. Tomorrow is the first day of September. Looking for guaranteed monthly tickets. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.